You're a really nice girl, and I really like you, but you have clothes like a dickhead. This is the Imperial Scrolls of Honor podcast. I'm Josh Folan.
Jay Baxtron.
And we are going to be bullshitting about the formative years of console gaming as we revisit the periodicals that covered it again. Today we're getting jiggy with Sega's 1990 release of Zoom for the Sega Genesis and the emulation disclosure. I played on Fusion on my PC with my OG hardware 3-button piped in through an adapter, and we played our 2-player action via Parsec on our laptops and the Fusion emulator as well. You said you used a 6-button, right, Jay?
Yep, 6-button, but also same. Everything else the same. Fusion.
Word.
Gotta go. Yep.
Please rate and review the podcast. It makes us feel really good about ourselves when people write things that are good about the podcast. It might even make us feel good if you write shitty things. Just any sort of interaction is good. Feedback. Well, what are we jamming on now, Jay? What are you jamming on now?
Oh, man.
Back to Outriders? What the fuck's going on there? What the fuck?
Yeah. So there's a new update. They dropped some new content.
Okay, you're a loot crate whore. I told you, you're a loot crate whore. No. These just brings you right back in. Just give you some new loot. You're just right back.
No loot. Actually, I've gotten zero new loot. But it's funny. Like I re-downloaded this game, kind of like because I saw some chatter about it on the Facebook page. Like somebody was like, "Oh, I was talking about it like it was brand new again." I'm like, "What?" I got rid of that a long time ago. I forgot that they were going to be having this new content drop, and so I figured, you know what, I was having fun with this game before. Why not jump back in, see what it's about? And I gotta say, man, before I completed the campaign, all the co-op like in-game stuff, except the absolute final thing, because you have to do that with a group and a very coordinated group. Whereas the other stuff, you can even solo it if you have a great build. You know what you're doing. Even though it's group content, you can get through it by yourself, especially if you don't have it turned all the way up. But the final thing, you have to have it turned up all the way to the max difficulty that they provide, and it has to be a group effort. And I haven't been able to get a group together to do that. But outside of that, I've done everything else. But even with that said, man, it's been months and months since I played this. It's more beautiful graphically than I remember, and I forgot how much this game really is. So they added 4 more expeditions. I don't know what else they added on top of that, but I've jumped back in.
No new loot. Not a single bit of new loot.
If there's new loot, I haven't grabbed it because my build was already great as it was. So I'm not picking up anything new. I'm more just wanting to see these new levels that they have. To see the new bosses, new fights, and yeah, man, it's. I've had a blast. I feel like I'm doing more damage than I was before. Maybe they nerfed some other builds and boosted mine. I don't know, but I'm having a blast with it. So I'm a fan again. I can't even believe that I'm saying that. I know they reworked some of the gear sets. One of the sets I'm wearing, I think it has some new attributes to it, just naturally. It was a build that I was wearing before because I didn't get the highest because I wasn't willing to grind constantly for this freaking armor set. But I think the build that I had, which I think is kind of the second best build, they boosted it. So I'm doing so much fire damage. And yeah, I jumped into a match and a couple people joined me. And we worked through it at probably tier 13 out of 15, at the highest tiers that they have. And so I wasn't sure. I was like, all right, I'll do 13, see if we can get through it. We blew through it, and I was like, man, did I get carried? That was so easy, And the damage, I outdamaged everyone. I did 174 million damage. The second dude did 90, and the other one did 50. I'm like, I carried them. This is awesome. But yeah, it's a blast, man.
147 million. That's the metrics. It's on a million.
It's millions of damage. It's it's like a counter, your score. Mine was 147. Sure. Blah 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 blah. And you can compare how much damage somebody did, how many times they died. All these things. And
it's insane that it's working on a scale that's in the millions. It's ridiculous. Hundreds of millions, no less.
Oh yeah, but yeah, man, it's like I said, I'm shocked. I didn't think I was going to be that much of a fan again, but especially if I can get a group together, I think I may try to push to that final Eye of the Storm again. We'll see. Okay. But yeah, after that, of course, a lot more Elder Scrolls. I'm finally hitting high DPS again. I'm over 90,000 DPS, and so I might actually join another vet trials team again. Just I've done all the trials in the game, but the last two that came in, I haven't done like hard modes and all those, so I think I might want to just join a vet trial team just to get back into that more because I'm hitting high damage again. And so yeah, it's fun, with all of the dungeons that I've missed in the past. I've been playing through some of them. I've gotten some of these new mythic sets that they released with the newest patches, where like you have to farm them in specific ways, and like you have to do this scrying. It's like a different game within the game that you can do. And I didn't think I would really like it, but I grinded to get that, and that also gives you higher damage. So I'm sucked back in, and what can I say? It's a fantastic game.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then after that, a lot of Halo Infinite. That's still my PvP go-to. A little bit of Forza thrown in there, but mostly Halo Infinite just to pity some poor fools.
Came off Forza pretty fast.
No, it's fun, but like I actually pulled it up the other day. It's fun, but I had Zion downloaded on the other Xbox so that we can race together. Because for me, like racing alone is fun, and that game again is amazing for its campaign mode. But I want to play with somebody else, and usually, like all the racing games I've played, in the last 5 or 6, 7, 8 years have been with my daughter. She's been racing with me, so. Once she actually does that, now that she has that downloaded, we'll probably play together some more there. So it's only on pause. I'm definitely not done by any means with Forza.
Okay.
What about you, man? I've got some other games sprinkled in there that we'll touch on, but what is that background? At first I was like, is that Final Fantasy like 15? But what am I looking at? Like,
no, that is Resident Evil. Yeah, you're like flying the. You're like it's like the. It was like if you sat down with Microsoft's, like, I don't know, whatever team fucking like decides user base, like the things that they want to push, like the things that they like if you sat down with whoever makes those decisions or whoever is working on that the hardest or in control of it and asked them like, what are the things that you wish a Microsoft Xbox owner was sitting down playing right now, it would be like those 4 games, probably.
Well, yeah, maybe not Outriders, definitely Halo, definitely Forza, definitely ESO. It's just funny to me because we've talked about this constantly. I just am amazed that ESO continues to grow and stay relevant during this time. And yeah, it's great that now it's owned by Bethesda, which is now part of Microsoft, so that just obviously boosts that. But it's funny too because I don't know if you saw, there's a report this week that supposedly World of Warcraft is coming to console, like coming to like Xbox and stuff at some point. I don't know if that's true. It's just rumors, but it's almost like that was a fun game back in the day. But why now? Like what?
I was gonna say, is that still going on?
Yeah, it's definitely still a game that's played. But to me, what I like that game. Jesse used to be in that game years ago. But to me, like a game like ESO is far better than a game like that. Unless you're just into more of the cartoony style and you just want that specific lore. Like, this is a much more beautiful game. So.
Warcraft is, it is, I haven't played Warcraft since, really, I only played 1 and 2 with any real devotion. I remember buying the battle chest, or I think I got it as a gift. I think Ted got it for me for Christmas or something. It was literally like the battle chest gift set that was like Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, the Warcraft 2 expansion pack, and it was all in this thing. I got all the CD. They were CD-ROM, like fucking.
Oh,
this was
yeah.
like 1997 or some shit. So yeah, I played the fuck out of both those games, and I've actually, it's probably been years now, but I have downloaded the, I scored some sort of, I don't remember what it was, if it was just DOSBox or something, but like something that allowed me to install those CDs onto my last laptop and play the game again, like on modern hardware. So yeah, I love those games. And I remember I bought Warcraft 3, which Warcraft 3 was like the intermediary between Warcraft 2 and Warcraft, the MMO. And like it was, more of like a one player kind of, and like I fucking hated it. So like when Warcraft, I've never been MMO minded, but the fact that I didn't play like Ultima or EverQuest is like still kind of mind blowing to me, because that's like, it's right in the like lore or type of game, fantasy medieval wheelhouse that I want.
Play that.
So like, yeah, there just has to be like something buried deep inside me that hates the idea of that of MMO to not have at least tried those. But in any event, yeah, like I never got into the World of Warcraft thing, and obviously it's fucking a huge thing, and I love that story world. It is like you mentioned, like you like the lore more. Like dude, like I still remember like the things that the Warcraft 2, when you clicked on them to highlight them. I still remember what a lot of them, the noises they made and shit. Like yeah. the peons, which I just love that they call the orc villagers peons, is hilarious. Just like that alone is hilarious. And yeah, they like Doug, like Yoktor, like shit. Like I remember the shit that they say, like from fucking 2 decades ago. So like yeah, they did a really fun job, a really good job of making that a story world that's fun to be in, even at that like rudimentary basic level. So I'm sure the modern iterations of that are just fucking hilarious and amazing. Yeah. So I can see that, but. That's mildly interesting. If that's that's like 76. If it hits Game Pass for free, I'll check it out. I would check that out. That would actually get me to turn on my caveman Xbox and take a look at gaming.
It's funny
in the Stone
you say
Age
that.
Again.
I haven't turned until last night when I played Beat.
I saw you online last night. I saw you. I logged in. You were 14 minutes ago. You were on fucking Oculus. I was like, oh, he's playing Oculus. Look at that.
I jumped on for a quick game of Beat Saber. But yeah, before that, I hadn't turned my Oculus on in over a month. It was like I hadn't touched it.
That's insane, dude. I played a full game of Demio last night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that's Resident Evil behind me, and that's because I'm playing Resident Evil 4 on my Oculus. It's still dynamite. It's an assault on my senses and like my VR decision-making capability. Like VR is so much more demanding, which all that more surprising that I enjoy it because
you're not an intense gaming like a dude. Like I don't understand.
It is so fucking intense at times, and like there's a lot. It's fucking die a lot, and like last night I think I'm getting towards the end, and I got into this battle arena area that's just like don't it's got. I'm amazed. Like for a while, I've kind of felt like I've been. Ammunition has not so much of Resident Evil in my memory is like we talked about it with Jab when we were doing the Final Fantasy thing. Like it's like a resource management game where you're trying to you have this scarcity problem at all times. So you can't just dump on things. You have to be very calculated. You have to have a plan, and you can't just fucking waste things. That's probably a big part of what I like about it is the strategy element of it. And you're not just fucking shooting things, but. I went through a big part of this game like without having that like a real pressure. Like I remember playing Resident Evil and like I have 4 bullets and I need to get through this area and I don't know it's not enough bullets to get me through here. I have to figure out an alternative plan that is not attack based to get through this fucking game. And like I haven't had that happen to me yet. But I'm entering this area, like I said, and it is very much just like fucking getting mobbed, and I do not really have the ammunition to do it the way that would be ideal. It's still not like I don't have enough bullets to do this kind of thing, but it's getting there. So yeah, like that's being imposed upon me for the first time in a while, and that's kind of fun. But it's hard, and yeah, I died, and like it's fucking. Game over. Like and like even it's Resident Evil, so it's fucking cheesy and shit. And you die, and it's just like it cuts to this like "you're dead" written in blood on a wall. Like you're dead. It says "you're dead." So even when you die, it's like it rubs it in a little bit. But yeah, so yeah, fucking like that happened last night, and I was just like, oh, fuck, I'm not doing that again. Like I'm turning this shit off. Like I'm not doing that right. Like way too frustrating and way too long and prolonged of a thing. So it's super fucking intense. So yeah, like I guess my point being, like I play this game sometimes, and I catch myself battling with the thought instead of focusing on the gameplay. Like I'm literally thinking to myself in like kind of this like disembodied way of looking at it. Like I can't fucking believe video games have come this far in my lifetime. I just cannot believe that this is a video game that I'm alive still to play. I just cannot believe how far the technology has come. You know, and especially, I guess it's probably magnified more playing a game like Resident Evil, where you do have like this rude. I remember playing this on basic bitch ass PlayStation 1. You know, like I remember how awful that experience was and how rigid even the movement was, and it had all that single or fixed camera systems to it where you couldn't even, you know, there may be something on the corner you can't even see. There's no real way to shoot. It sucks, you know. It was terrible, but it was just such a good story world and so progressive for the time that he's dealt with all that shit. And like this,
and it was great.
None of that, none of that shit with this at all. And it's so fucking, you know, man. I mentioned the sniper mechanics and stuff, and it's just so fucking good. And even this is like it's a remake, so like, you know, like the plants are not 3-dimensional plants. They have taken the flat sprite and they've done like it's like a shitty Christmas decoration. They've just like they've duplicated the flat sprite, turned it 90 degrees, and made like
one of those
a cross. And like so it kind of looks like a bush no matter what direction you look at it from. But if you go look down on top of it, it's not a bush. It's just it's just 2 lines, you know. So like it's not even the greatest remastering visually, but it is still impressive in every possible way. And you know, and that's not, you know, with the actual, I don't know, I shouldn't say that. There's some shitty things too. Like, you know, it's got the thing where like if an enemy runs up against a door, for one, they can't seem to open doors, which is dumb as fuck, I think. And it's great because the shotgun, you cannot load the shotgun. Like I can't believe I haven't Googled it. It's so lazy. I mean, not to have Googled it, but like my shotgun holds 6 shells. The fucking riot shotgun I have, but I can't shoot more than one no matter what I do. I have to shoot a bullet and then take another one out of my holster on my belt and put it in the gun and cock it and then shoot. So like I can't, even though I can hold six shells, I can't shoot 6 semi-automatically. And like, it's so frustrating. But in those door situations, I'll use that gun because I can literally just open the door, pop them, run back, let the door close, and then they just sit outside the door. You can hear them bang, like the door rattles and they bang on the door, but they don't come through it, you know. So I can fucking reload and then open the door again and fucking shoot someone in the head.
Rinse and repeat.
Right, but anyways, when they run up against the door, you still sometimes get the sprite.
The hand sprite, coming through.
Coming through the thing, you know, or their weapon, their fucking mace or whatever. A couple pixels of it will come through, you know. So yeah, it's not by no means the cleanest remastering, and there's a whole bunch of immersion breaks in that regard. But it's still, it just, you know, maybe just because I've been playing all my life, like I'm willing to deal with that, and it doesn't bother me. But it's so fucking good and so immersive and so much fun and so like shockingly difficult. At times. So yeah, really, really good. So I'm playing the shit out of that. Like I said, I think I'm getting pretty close to the end, which is part bummer, part cool. And then I've been getting pretty heated back up on Demio lately because of the looming campaign release on the 16th. So like, I don't know, it's just inspired. I hadn't played it really for like a month. And yeah, the past like 2 weeks or so, I've been alternating all my free time with Demio, and then I've restarted watching Eastbound and Down. Did you ever watch that show?
I never watched it. Yeah.
Oh my god, dude! You cannot watch.
I mean, I know about it and everything, but
you can't watch the kids. I don't know if there's.
I would never watch that dude at all in front of me. Just him. If he's in it, then it does. No, not happening.
No kids. It's probably. I don't know if there's ever been a show that is less appropriate for children to watch, but which is part of the hilarity because there's so much of the narrative is him interacting with kids the way that he is, you know, and it's, oh my god, it's from, I don't even know that's probably might even be late noughts, if not early teens. Oh my god, dude, it is, it's so far, I can't believe HBO still airs it. It's so offensive in so many ways and so inappropriate and so just, I mean, like I said, if you made it in 2021, you would just get I cannot believe HBO airs it. I really can't. It's so fucking wrong. He's just such a dickhead. And you know, I mean, I guess maybe that's like the little, like the creative nuance that allows you to get away with something like that at all, even back then, is just how oblivious and clearly he just doesn't get it. Like it's so clearly conveyed that he doesn't get it, and no one else should be like him. You know what I mean? Like it's so well conveyed that it's the shit he does is somehow absolved, but it is fucking hysterical. I am in what landed me on it is, what the fuck was I was Googling something and a clip came up, and it's the clip, it's like from season 1 episode 4 or something. He's in the fucking he's trying to go to a barbecue. So he's come back to the town that he grew up in, and his high school girlfriend or high school crush is a teacher at the school now, and he has come back and somehow he's like a substitute he's being a substitute teacher for Jim or something. It's like his shitty side job because he got kicked out of the Major League Baseball. And so he's comes back, he's trying to be a substitute teacher, and he sees this girl and he gets invited to the barbecue, and she's dating the principal now. So he wants to go to this barbecue, and he wants to bring a girl that's gonna like make her jealous. So he brings this like the town slut that who's got fake breasts, and she's just like, just a dumb, obnoxious drunk, basically. And he's at the laundromat, which I think is where she steals her clothes from. And he's dressed up in the dickhead stuff he dresses up in. And she comes out, and he's like, you can't fucking wear that. Like, I need he said, and this is the way the dialogue, the writing for that character is so good. He speaks in this elevated vernacular, but still somehow so stupid and just it's not wrong, it's just off, and it's so good, such a good character. But yeah, he's sitting there, he's telling us you fuck can't wear that, what the fuck would it? And she pulls another outfit out of one of the dryers and changes into it, and he looks at her and he's like, you're like a really nice girl, and I really like you. He's like, but you dress, but you have clothes like a dickhead. It's just it's just such a weird but incredible line. And I literally saw that clip, was dying laughing at just the clip. I think they talked about it in one of the podcasts I listened to, and I was like, watch that clip, and I was like, I'm watching that show again for sure. And I've just been hotboxing episodes ever since. You have to. Watch it on your phone or something. Do it in your free time. No one. I'll be surprised if Courtney would enjoy it, but it is so it is male. It's you have to turn off any sensitivity you have adopted as a father and as a maturing man, and just look at it from a 25-year-old. I don't know shit about the world dude perspective, and you will cry laughing. It is so so hilarious. In any event, I've been watching a lot of that and playing Demio, and yeah, I'm now at level 34 in the meaningless, purely cosmetic leveling system, which is 45 nice. Is the max, at least right now. I'm kind of half-ass expecting that to change with the new update. That be part of what they release as some sort of expansion on the leveling, because that is the elder statesmen that I play with on occasion, or anytime I play with someone who's at 45 and they clearly know what they're doing and been playing the shit out of it forever. That's one of their major gripes is you can't do it. There's no benefit to playing beyond obviously the experience of it. So I imagine that's something they want to change from a developer perspective to incentivize you to want to go further,
Which makes sense.
Sure. It's totally cosmetic though, and that also kind of sucks. Although I don't know how. There's no way to have any permanence to the to character development and not have it drastically affect the balance of the game.
Yeah, it has to, right? Because if you give some kind of benefit for being higher level, then you're like, oh, if I only want to play with 45s,
exactly,
or 45 and above type of thing.
Yeah, and it is too. The game last night, dude, I was playing with another 45. This girl that fucking clearly knew her shit, and me at 34, and then there was a level 1 and a level 3 or something that popped into the game. They were out the Discord too, which was kind of surprising. Usually that's kind of why I put I do it when I want to play a game. I don't even bother to try to find people in advance for the most part anymore. I'll just, because I play with the assassin and you can play alone with that just fine, not just fine, but it's possible at least. Yeah. And so I'll just start a game, post the room number in the Discord, and usually experienced players will just populate it because there's always people in there looking for games. So I was surprised that 2 newbies came off that. But yeah, so the whole experience is like me and her talking them through. I mean, like basic shit. I'm like telling them that they can tilt the board by hitting the stick, and like they don't know. Okay. They don't know super simple things, But like that's one of the things. I was playing. I played fucking Walkabout yesterday, and I played with some dude on the New Babylon course that fucking was just like knew everything, and like just the shit. The I'm sure I've said it before, like, but like the knowledge sharing in that community and just that platform to me is just so cool. The way. I don't know. It's like everything. Like there's so little out there because it's relatively small as a gaming community. Like there's so I've talked about with the Shadowgate thing how I couldn't find anything on it. It's just so cool how like everything about that is like this interpersonal exchange of ideas, and it's just a really cool way of gaming. I think it's just really interesting to me. And different than anything I've ever experienced. So yeah, so fucking Demio was all about that. Last night was all about just like taking these 2 noobs, and we didn't even finish. We fucking died on the second board. They did that last update they did. Mm-hmm. The Rat King is that. It's a motherfucker now. They did something that made it harder. It's ridiculous.
They made it harder.
It's way fucking harder, dude. Like I've had multiple like what the fuck is this shit moments playing the Rat King board since they did that last update. Yeah, there were like. On that level last night, I think 5 Gorgons, which if you play fucking Demio, 5 Gorgons in one level is fucking ridiculous. Fucking Gorgons are pricks. They are fucking very difficult enemies, and to have 5 of them in one, like that's I had never seen that before. Maybe 3 was the most I'd ever seen in one of those levels. So yeah, last night, the last 2 killed us. So we didn't finish, So like, even though we didn't succeed, you'd think that'd be like, fucking noobs, but like, it was, I mean, the noobs are like, this is the most fun we've had playing the game by far. Like, do you guys want to play tomorrow night? It's really, really cool fucking game, way of gaming. Yeah, the fucking, with that, so I got, I think it was level 30, 31 or something like that, 31 and 32 maybe, were the last assassin, the new assassin outfits, and then there's also an assassin die. So as much as cosmetic shit, whatever, it was cool. I was surprised and cool to find that there are class specific dies you can get. That's really cool.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, of course the assassin die is red, and it's fucking cool. So I got the assassin die, and then I think what was last assassin outfit, but it's not as cool. The second one has like this protrude. I'm sure you've seen when we played. I think I was wearing it. I'm sure you've seen it. But like the second level assassin costume has like this, it's called the carnival one, and it has like this protruding kind of like beak like mask to it that is very distinct. And the third, the new one, it looks pretty much the same as the first one you have as the assassin. So I just like that it's so differentiated. So I stuck with the second one, but it reminds me, the best thing I can equate it to, the mask is, it's one of the disguises the Maitlands use to scare the Dietzes and Beetlejuice.
Oh, like yeah.
The thing where he pulls his snout out, it looks just like that to me, is what I think.
I can see that.
Yeah. So yeah, playing the shit out of that, and just cannot wait till the new thing drops on the 16th. And then I listened to the latest Rough Talk VR pod I listened to last night, has a game in the App Lab they covered, which, do you even know what the App Lab is? Have we talked about that before? The App Lab is like, it's kind of like it. A lot of the I have never even looked at it, to be honest with you. I think maybe I looked at it once, but I haven't bought anything from there. A lot of it, to my understanding, is like a lot of beta stuff. It's like smaller developers. It's basically it's the place people can sell things on the platform without getting into the vetted store, the main store, the main Oculus store. So
okay, makes sense.
It's cool. Yeah, I mean it's cool they let you, that they have that available. Like iTunes doesn't have like a secondary thing. Like they don't. They're just like either you meet our standards and we say yes, or fuck off kind of thing. So it's cool that that's possible and available to developers. But yeah, my understanding is a lot of it's underdeveloped stuff, beta testing, yada yada yada. Like not necessarily the most polished good games. But this one, they I fire it up, and like a lot of those App Lab ones, I'll sometimes I'm hard to even click on them because I'm like, I know it's going to be some bullshit that I'm not necessarily interested in. But there's like RPG, and I'm like, okay, I'll listen. And sure enough, it's an RPG, and it's So it's called Arcaxer, Rcaxer, and it's a turn-based RPG that looks kind of Diablo-ish, like kind of that third-person above kind of deal, and also kind of Demio-ish, maybe a little bit too. Mm-hmm. But then it shifts to a first-person for battles. So in the battles, it also introduces some real-time elements like dodging and striking elements that are still turn-based. So it's not too kind of thing, but it does require some movement, and some use of obviously the things that make VR cool. So it sounds like they talked it up pretty fucking highly. It's $24.99, which is pricey for
something in the lab. Yeah.
The app lab, the games are usually, but they said it's like they don't like their whole the biggest shtick that they had in it was they're like, we don't understand why it's in the app lab. Like it's a fully they played the whole game. They're like fully polished. Like there doesn't make any sense to us why it's here and not in the main store. It doesn't make any sense. They talked it up pretty goddamn good. So I think because I don't have a game really RPG wise like long term fucking play to do after Resident Evil. So I think that's gonna be my next move. So I'll let you know. It's very like there are spells and shit too. I guess you can you learn how to you have to fucking cast spells, So it looks pretty fucking cool. It looks like a really well done game. So pretty excited about that. So that's next up. Let's see if we can talk about Zoom as long as we talked about this shit.
That is the main background zero music from Zoom bringing us in.
Synopsis. Mr. Smart is speeding through space. He's heading for a curious battle against wiggly space phantoms. The phantoms have set up magic force fields around Earth. When Mr. Smart gets to each field, he must skate around it, capturing squares while outrunning the phantoms. Surprise, surprise! Each field has goodies that Mr. Smart can grab to outwit the phantoms, but he's got to hurry. It's a battle of wits and time, dodges and jumps. The phantoms are so cute that Mr. Smart might forget how dangerous they are and wind up tumbling into a black hole. There are 9 sentences, complete sentences, in that synopsis, Jay. All but 2 of them are punctuated with an exclamation point. Which is very in line with the game title, of course.
Right.
But thought it worth pointing out.
Everything's extreme. It's the 90s, or almost the 90s. Let's go. Everything's rad and exciting.
Yeah. Well, technically, it released in January of 1990, so it actually technically is the 90s. Yeah. But tell us what kind of game this is first, Jay.
This is a puzzler, a very unique puzzler, but yeah, this is if you're looking for a puzzle type of game, this is it.
For sure.
Very similar to a Dig Dug type of game.
Yeah. Yeah, arcade derived puzzler deal. So it was released in 1990 by Sega of America after being developed by Discover Software International, which didn't really have much worth talking about otherwise. And if you even count this worth talking about, I think I've said before, I found this game. I'd never heard of it having a Genesis growing up. Like this is a game I'd never seen, heard of, nothing. So when I found it in whatever the fuck, probably Game Pro it was, I was like blown away by how. I ordered it immediately, and we're doing a game episode now on it. So yeah, it's one of the things I don't know. It just came out of fucking nowhere, and it's the reason I'm doing the podcast is finding shit like this, So very fun. So yeah, it was released in January, simultaneous with the Japanese release, which that is interesting too. Usually
rare back then.
Yeah, with Sega, it's not always before, but it's rarely the same. With Nintendo, it's almost always in Japan first. So. In any event, same time. So January 1990 happenings. On the 7th of January in 1990, the Tower of Pisa was closed to the public because it was determined to be leaning too far.
What?
Just thought that was funny to me. Have you ever been to the Tower of Pisa, Jay?
I have never. I've never been to Europe
either.
Need to make that trip though for sure.
I hear good things. Phil Collins's Another Day in Paradise was the number one joint on the Billboard Top 100 on January 1st, anyways. And then Tom Cruise vehicle Born on the 4th of July was tops of the box office at the time, which, Miyagi, fuck off with that. I've never seen that either. I don't believe. Or maybe it was probably on in a room I was in as a child.
I don't think I've ever even heard of that. I'm like, I'm thinking about it like, does not compute. Nope.
Yeah.
Got no recollection.
It was definitely a big deal at the time. I mean, anything Tom Cruise was at the time. So the artwork, the cover art, is an illustrated deal featuring the aforementioned Mr. Smart character, a rather human-like face that occupies his entire egg-shaped orange body. It's got large ears that I'm not sure what to equate the shape to, like. I don't know, maybe like a fox or like I don't know what those ears are supposed to be.
Dude, it's
Miyagi. Fucker just came in from outside cooing. It's this cooing deal. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, it looks just like an egg to me with like, yeah, kind of like some animal ears. I don't know, off the top.
That's what I mean though. What kind of animal though? Like I'm not sure.
I don't know animal ears well enough to.
I know. Well,
to be able to speculate.
It's weird to me that like I identify them as animal ears, and I've never thought about trying to identify disembodied animal ears before. It's like that, like the idea that once I made that determination, I was like, and the fact that I couldn't place what they were, I was like, I don't know. It was like a broken mental loop. It was like, what do you mean?
It's just very odd looking, just all together. Like. Clearly with video games, especially during this time, things did not need to make sense at all. Mario's a plumber jumping on mushrooms. Like, what are we talking about? But this, when I look at this cover art, I don't even know what to make sense of it, man. I don't even know what they were thinking coming up with this stuff. Like, it just doesn't even seem logical in any kind of structure.
Yeah, agreed. So he's also got a tail, and he's got green legs and arms with gloves and loafers on. So,
right?
Yeah, again, just like a little bit, like just a wee bit of anthropomorphism going on. So he's running around on one of the boards that we'll eventually get into here and talk about. And it looks a little bit like the way it's portrayed here. It looks a little bit like a disco dance floor it's got a couple enemies behind him, and it's a purple hand, which they're not purple in the game, but it's one of the purple hand enemies, and then the scrub brush enemy, and then a clock pickup item nearby. And it says Zoom down at the bottom where the titles always go on these black thatch case designs that I love so much. And the back has the title up top. It's got three screenshots of game board screens. 2 of them are from the same stage, which is pretty fucking lazy, I think. And there is a lot of original copy back here, though, and that's not lazy. The worth reading from there. Did you ever get punched by a banana, tussle with a mushroom, tumble into a black hole? You will now. Zoom into space and race around the play grids, outrunning the funny critters who pop up in the strangest places. Nab Goodles to win. And then they list off some pickups, so I'm guessing that this is a typo, and they meant goodies here.
Goodies, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Goodles. And then they point out there are 36 levels, and that's a lot of fucking Zoom that I did not know this game went as far as until this playthrough. So the manual, which will be in the show notes, as it always is, has 14 pages, including the covers. It's got black and white innards and a color cover. I have a CIB copy of this, so I took it out to my car and sat in the back seat to peruse it for the notes. Just like the good old days. So starting up in Synopsis are on the first couple pages, then one on very simple controls before they explain the play modes on page 4. And this you obviously didn't have a full grasp of these when we were firing up the 2-player that we did. So it's worth talking about. So there's a 1-player mode, and there's 2 types of 2-player mode. There's alternating turns, each on the same sequence of levels, and you can either do a controller pass or alternating, like controller 1 and controller 2, which is cool that it gives you that option for, I mean, you only got one Genesis controller when you bought a Genesis back in the day. So like that's it seems like a dumb, insignificant thing now, but back then that was like a kid getting this on Christmas and this game, or a Genesis and this on, or 2 kids rather, getting it on fucking Christmas and only having the one controller. That was probably super clutch, because it's a real bear Genesis isn't as bad as the Nintendo is with it, but if you try to take your controller and unplug it and plug it into the other port, you will probably lock up your system. It'll probably freeze up. So being able to not have to do that is a nice little touch. So it has that option, and then a competition mode where both players are on the same boards at the same time, competing for the same squares. Or not, like we said, I guess it's more of a co-op than competing, really. So maybe competition is the wrong terminology. I mean, you are competing with scores, but it is, it's
definitely more. They should have renamed that, I feel like, instead of calling it a competition. Because I told you on the 2-player, this is what I thought it should be, and that's exactly what it was. But I still don't think of it as competition,
Right. Agreed. Race to Win is a headline for a section after that, explaining how this shit kind of works, and it says, you are Mr. Smart, and it's up to you to take the force field away from the Phantoms. Press your D button to start running up, down, left, or right. The lines you skate over will start flashing. When you skate around all 4 sides of a square, the square starts flashing too. When you get all the squares to flash on a board, you've won the field. So that's probably sounds more complicated than it is. When you start playing, it'll very quickly become intuitively reveal itself what you got to do.
Yep.
Page 5 covers timer mechanics, and the timer starts counting down when the action starts on a level. And if you win the field before the timer hits 0, the remaining time is added to your score. And I think it's 10 points per click. And if the timer hits 000, before you get all the squares, the Phantoms start ganging up on you, and it writes, you start sweating. And I thought this was just be like, I thought they were saying that it's just like kind of like a joke, like it's going to get harder. But your sprite in the game actually gets stressed out looking. His eyes get weird, and he's got like perspiration coming off of him, so they're serious. They're being literal there, which is pretty fun. So, and it doesn't say it here, but the Phantoms start ganging up on you. New ones will appear on some boards too, when this happens. So not only do the enemies get, I think, a little more frantic and a little faster probably, but new ones will appear at this time. So you are highly incentivized to try to finish these things in the time allotted within the timer, so.
Wait, how often did you experience that? I never got to that point where you
finished the game and you never outran a timer.
Never.
I think you just didn't notice, Jay. There's no way. There's no way.
I'm telling you, dude. Because at first when I was so in our notes, I'm looking at high scores. I was at first just writing down like how much time was left each time I would complete a level. And I was like, this can't be what he was talking about. And I just kind of stopped doing that. But I always finished it before, mainly because a lot of times I would just run across a freaking feather,
sure.
You know what I mean? And just blow up early. And that's when I honestly, that's when I wrote down, because I was thrown off looking at the notes, thinking initially, like I said, when you get that feather, it eliminates all the enemies. Now I can finish working on the board. But it would just cut the board off, and I'd be like, oh, I'm done already. That happened so many times, man. So many times.
That's crazy to me.
I'm telling you.
But I wasn't there for your play, maybe. That seems crazy to me. In any event, lives and how you cop extras are covered on the top of page 6. So you start with 4 at the beginning of the game. You get extras at scores of 1,000, 3,000, and 5,000 points. And you also gain an extra when, and this is in quotations from the manual, a certain number of squares flash in sequence. And I have no idea what this means. So I tried looking around for an explanation, but didn't have any luck. So I don't know if you are a Zoom enthusiast out there and you have any fucking idea what they're talking about. I would love to know what it means. By all means, hit us up on the socials or email us. There is a page and a half of breakdowns that follow that. So we have Phantoms first, and the enemies basically. We have Rowdy Fingers, and the copy is your arch enemy. They chase you endlessly, and these are the green hand sprites that are on pretty much every board. And there's Spilers. These roam around the grid, erasing your lines, and these are the scrub brush looking things. And they're probably the biggest pain in the asses, as they obviously negate your progress. So like once, if you finish a square, it will, like, they can't erase that. But if you do part of the lines around one, they can go over it and remove that. So yeah, huge pain in the ass with those things. And then there are queues, and those run diagonal shortcuts to ambush you. So yeah, these are the bubble grouping, like they look like just a bunch of globules packed together. And yeah, they can change the axis. Like they normally just like go back and forth on an axis, but they can change and actually go back the other direction too. So like, yeah, they're basically totally unpredictable, I guess is a simple way to put it. So, most of the other enemies move in like a little bit more of a deliberate fashion that you can kind of calculate. The spilers do go back and forth, but it's like again, like a little bit predictable. Like these fucking things can do anything.
I always got nervous trying to jump over one. Anytime I jumped over one, I was like, okay, don't move and don't move and have me land on you.
Yep. And there are spines, and these warp from place to place for surprise attacks, and they look like the viruses, or rather, they look like viruses beneath a microscope, is what I would say is up with those. And then lastly are charms, and these slow you down so other phantoms can attack you. They have the jellyfish vibe going on with them. And yeah, it should have been clear to me that that's what these did, and that they weren't lethal because it says it slows you down. So they obviously have to hit you in order to do that. But yeah, I was well into the game and had played it God knows how many times before I accidentally ran into one of these and realized that they did not kill you. They just slow you down, which is also a shit. I mean, slowing down sucks. Yeah. Big time. And luckily there's a pickup that can negate it and get you back to normal. But
bottom line, just avoid.
Yeah, obviously you want to avoid them, but just I was like, I ran into one and I was like, and it's not like the most your speed change is not the most discernible thing. So yeah, when I ran into one, I was like, the first time I was like, what the fuck? Like I had a moment or two of just like, what just happened exactly? So breaking down the goodies, not goodles. There is the banana, and this slows down the phantoms for a short time and plays a pretty cool little individual tune. Hourglass temporarily freezes the phantoms. And then there's the sun, and this makes you indestructible for a short time. And I thought these were sunflowers, not suns, actually, now that I think about it.
They're definitely sunflowers in the game, man, for sure. Like here, it just kind of looks like a sun.
Okay.
But in the game, it definitely sunflowers.
So there's like a little bit of green to it, right? Okay.
For sure. You're not crazy.
Yeah, I thought I was fucking connecting dots that weren't there. There is the mushrooms, and these speed you up and give you bonus points, or will nullify being slowed down by a charm. So that's how you kind of fix things if you get slowed down. And then there are wings, and it says they bonk out all the platforms, is how this is described. Bonks out all the phantoms, not platforms. So yeah, it kills everything on the screen. So one, it's just fun that it says bonks, but two, yeah, that doesn't necessarily explain what the hell happens.
Right? I mean, it says so you have the whole force field to yourself. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, okay, now I can go, but really, that's just like the supernova move.
Right. The smart bomb, if you're playing Gunsmoke. There's red candies is worth 50 bonus points, blue candies that are worth 100, and then lastly there are the stars, and it says the star is a secret goodie. Grab it and gain one of the other goodies as a surprise. So yes, you get these, you don't know what they are, and they can obviously be the really good things. They can even be the feathers, which is an incredible come up when you pick one of those and it's the feather, because it's it's obviously probably more often than anything else just the dumbass bonus points. But yeah, when you chance onto one of those being a feather, it's like, yeah!
Dude, I will say throughout my playthrough, I got many a sunflower out of those. I was like, okay, like it was nice.
Yeah. A bunch of pretty no-shit Sherlock winning hints occupy page 9, but at the bottom they have something I've never seen before that I wanted to read. So it says, Zoom is a challenging game, but it's hard to maneuver precisely at first, which, like, the but suggests that it should be a contradiction. But it's not. Like, those are, So that's one thing. But moving on, it says, here's some advice from 3 experienced Sega game counselors. In Zoom, you'll find that the more you play, the easier the moves become. Frustrating turns will soon seem like a breeze, so have patience and build up your skills by practicing. Now put Zoom into action, and also always remember, Zoom's middle name is Patience, and it's signed Judy, Kristen, and Heidi. Which is, I don't know. I've never seen this in a fucking video game manual before. Like a letter. I don't know. It's just weird.
From counselors? Yeah, it's like, okay.
Yeah. Pretty fun. And then there's a full page of the Sega scorebook grids, 2 pages of legalese, and it's time to play Zoom. Do you have any notable history, Jay?
I will say, it's notable, but I'm a little surprised to share this. But the game actually released with poor reviews, man, poor reception when it came out. EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly, one of my childhood favorite gaming magazines that we've talked about, maybe covering in the future, actually gave it a 3 out of 10, with reviews stating that it looked like a 16-bit title with Atari 2600 level gameplay. And that is pretty harsh.
That is super harsh, yeah.
Super harsh. So, yeah, I mean, not good when it came out, but I will say, oddly enough, when I was probably on, I don't know, maybe stage 4, 6 or something, you know, very deep into it, I did start kind of feeling a little bit like, okay, I could see how, after having played through several levels of this, like, this would feel like a step down than playing some other 16-bit level game you're expecting, you know, like a, I don't know, one of the other games that we've played, like a Shinobi or a, I don't know, Golden Axe or something like that, you know what I mean, with true 16-bit, like, great graphics, like a story, like with a character, whereas this was kind of like a puzzler. So I could kind of see where they're coming from. I don't know if I'd give it 3 out of 10 though. That's extra harsh.
That's
like,
super harsh.
From a kid standpoint, maybe if you're like, hey, I want the new hot thing, and then you got this, maybe you'd be disappointed, but it's not a bad game. Come on.
No, nowhere near that bad. Yeah, when I mentioned I was trying to find the answer to that certain number of squares flash in a sequence. When I was trying to look up the answer for that, I was just poking around, reading shit, and like looking at articles and stuff. And I found a few things that, like, yeah, really shit on it. And I was like, man, like that's crazy. You know, like, especially looking at it from like that time period, like early Genesis, like, you know, how could you say it clearly looks nothing like Atari anything? Like, it looks fucking incredible compared to anything on the NES even, you know? So,
well, I guess I could see counterpoint to that as I'm thinking about it. Like, if I'm on the NES at that point and I have my Super Mario 3 and that's like an amazing, beautiful colored, like, story game like this, and I'm like already hearing, you know, because but
what the fuck, man? How do you compare this to a platformer?
But no, hear me out. Because I'm comparing all the platforms, right? At this point, I have an NES, or I hope to have an NES. My friends have NES. I played Mario 3. I love it. I hear and I'm seeing stories about Super Mario Brothers 4 coming out, you know, to the Super Famicom and what that's going to be. And that's going to be 16-bit. Oh, look, Sega Genesis is already 16-bit. What kind of next-gen stuff they have? And then you get, if you were to get this as kind of like your game, it's kind of, all right, you know, it's a fun game, but it's not like...
It's a puzzler, though. It's not supposed to be... Fuck it. Yeah, it's not supposed to...
All I'm saying is I could see their point. I'm not saying I could fully agree. I'm just saying if I'm a kid at the time, like in my mind, back in 1990, I could see that. I think
it's a horrendous context from which to judge this game. I think it's a fucking horrendous context from which to judge this game.
Hey, the game was released into the environment to these people. Like, you know, that's true feelings, man.
I think for a puzzler for the time, it looks and plays fantastic.
True.
In any event, there's no economic analysis for this, of course, so let's start talking about the fucking playthrough. That is the sun theme, bringing us into the playthrough of Zoom on the Sega Genesis. And the title screen is first up, as we do. And it gives you the blue Sega logo at Fire Up, as to be expected. And then it cuts to Mr. Smart landing on a stage with some searchlights hunting for him. And this is like a very high 16-bit res, in quotations, situation. So yeah, there's searchlights searching for him. One lands on him before the title treatment up top falls down onto his head, and it flattens him. And then his ears pop up out of the flattened version of him, and he kind of strafes off quickly to stage left as one of the ears waves goodbye to the PO, to the player. So it kind of sets up like this fun, funny tone of the game pretty nicely, I think, and looks pretty good as far as 16-bit cutscenes go. And then the title screen crops up, and you pick your game mode with a little Mr. Smart icon cursor, which I always appreciate when they bother to do. And we cut to him racing through space as the stage ditty fires up. as he flies, stage 1 is it's like hit by him as he's flying through space, and it spins into place as the screen settles on a view of planet Earth from maybe what I would say is like the next planet over in the solar system distance, maybe Mars or Venus, or is it Mercury? Yeah. Venus is the other direction, right? Mercury is the one closest. Yeah. so these interstitials do not change for any of the later stage changes, which I was kind of maybe a little sad inside that they didn't like have some variance to
like a different planet type of thing he was going to. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the story is that he's saving Earth. So I at first was like, I didn't even necessarily call it Earth at first, even though I read the synopsis. I went back and checked, and I was like, oh, so he's saving Earth here, so it should always be Earth, I guess. But yeah, I mean, there's some sort of difference would have been nice, of course, but whatever.
But here, this I would say is also another example supporting the Atari argument, because I've seen this similar kind of like graphic lead, even though I like it. Like I like Mr. Smart zooming in like in the planet. I feel like I've seen that lead in on many other Atari 7800 games. So from that standpoint, I'm like, okay, I can see that.
Yeah,
even though I like it.
But does it look shitty like Atari 7800 shitty, or does it look like Sega Genesis?
No, it doesn't look shitty. Yeah, it doesn't look shitty.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, like the idea, like I said, the reason I only wrote this bum me out a little bit is because I immediately thought back to, just because it's the only other game like this we've done a game app on. Dig Dug 2, same thing.
Yeah.
One of the gripes was the interstitials being just kind of basic, and I mean, there's a little bit more variance to them, I guess, but they were essentially just reskinned Pac-Man interstitials, so that wasn't great either. But and it also recycled them later on, which was, like I said, that was the reason I stopped playing. I was like,
oh yeah,
yeah. So the Zoom music cue follows that. As the play grid comes flying at our POV in perspective fashion, turning end over end before coming to rest, and the way we'll play through it. And a mildly annoying thing about this is you cannot skip it with the button depression. And it's kind of like it's like a bit of a slow animation, So it would be nice to be able to blow through it after you've watched it a few dozen fucking times. So, whatever, though. The main BGM 0 theme that we heard earlier fires up, and Mr. Smart appears on the board in a Tasmanian devilish tornado spin, and we are playing Zoom. So let's talk controls and HUD, and this is super basic. So it's A and C both jump, B fires your rubber ball projectiles out of your sprite's ass end, and the D-pad moves, and that's fucking it as far as controls go. As far as HUD goes, we have the score, remaining lives, stage number are up top for both or one player, and that's your whole HUD. So it's just, it's not a complex video game by any length.
Yep. Agreed. But my question then, though, how often did you use the B button move, the shoot behind you?
Yeah, not. I was mentioning in our 2-player thing, like, not at all. And like on occasion, especially like maybe one of the things you could gripe about this is it's like 36 of these levels is a lot. So you just have like moments of repetition where like just like trying to add spontaneous variation, something different in the way you're playing. You're like, oh, I can fucking the ass shooting thing. Like maybe if I try to work that into my strategy, it'll make this easier, more fun, whatever. And shooting stuff is fun, of course. That's why there's a whole genre dedicated to it. So So I would like occasionally think to myself like, oh, I'm going to start doing that, and it's in part because it comes out of your ass end. So it's just kind of like a it's just a very it's not a clean way to defend enemies or fend enemies off. You know what I mean? You have to you need to get to where they're going or where they're going to be behind you and then start running away from them to do it. And then if you can do all that run around, do you really even need to do it at all?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
because it shoots behind you as well. If it shot in front of you, it'd be a different kind of
completely
usefulness, but going behind you, it's like I'm looking ahead, focus on where I'm trying to go.
Right.
This is maybe useful if like people are gaining on me or something, but like in practice, otherwise I don't really need to use this too often. Plus, it's just confusing to hit the jump button. Like if you forget which one.
It was amazing to me that there's only 2 buttons. And when I would think to do this and try to implement it, I would often immediately thereafter find myself confused and die.
Why is that?
Which is crazy that it's because you just spend so much of this game just hitting this. It's like Sonic, you're just hitting the same button. You don't need to think about buttons. You're just in the zone, And it is a fast-paced, harried game at times. So it's not like you're just casually fucking lollygagging through these levels. It does get stressful. It was amazing to me how frazzled I could get with the buttons, considering it is seemingly such a basic thing, but it would have the effect. Yeah, I mean, it's I get where they're coming from. Like, this is a game where you're not. It's like Subnautica to a degree in that it's not. You're not intent. The game is not designed for you to battle these things. You are trying to. You do not have an offensive component to you. You are trying to survive and accomplish something in an environment that's populated by things that are trying to hurt you, So like, or can be trying to hurt you. So, I get the idea of like not turning into a shooter, because then if you give that capability to a person, you're incentivizing them to turn it into a shooter, and it's not a shooter.
Right.
You don't want
exactly. That is not what they wanted at all.
Right. So I get the idea of like giving you that as a tool. And if you think about it, if you were able, the problem is, honestly, if you played it enough trying to use it and implement it, it probably would become a very helpful thing. If you could think to do it when you need it, truly, when especially because your character loses speed, like that's one of the mechanics in the game. So when you get slowed down, that's the one time, I think the one time I might have used it, like when I really needed it and thought of it and implemented it properly and then did not die immediately thereafter, was a situation like that where I was slowed down later in the game and there was enough shit going on where I needed a solution and I was like, oh, B, and I'd hit it and it worked and it helped, So like it can be helpful if you can use it and implement it the right way. It's just, so much of the game doesn't need it that it's hard to get yourself into that gear when the actual situation arises to do so. So
and I tried to get into it once and started using it, and I was like, okay, and then I ran out of them, and then I couldn't rely on it, and then I was just annoyed, and I was like, well, forget it. I don't want to have to worry about inventory management.
And that's kind of a shit. Like, I guess that's worth mentioning about the HUD. So the little thing next to your Mr. Smart head, next to your lives, so the thing 2 clicks over from your life count, is your the rubber balls is what it calls them in the manual. It's like that's your inventory of them left. That's your count, but it's not a number. It's just a visual. And like the way it describes your depletion of them is like that little icon just gets smaller than eventually disappears. So it's like, I have no idea how many. I mean, I guess I'm sure if you took the time to count them, you could figure it out, and it's probably a dependable number. But yeah, you don't even know. It's not even a certain number. So it's like that also kind of de-incentivizes because you don't know the economy with which you're working in, So like you're going to be over inclined to preserve them because you don't even fucking know how many you have, So yeah, it's a little bit of it just falls a little short as a mechanic. Like I said, I get the idea. It's a cool notion, and if you really fucking leaned on it and tried to use it, it probably would become a useful asset. But as a person just jumping in and playing it, I don't know how much it worked, What are you gonna do? So yeah, with it. It's the for how are we going to do these? We're not just doing obviously a level by level situation. That'd be boring as fuck. We'll talk about a couple of levels after this, but just kind of opening our conversation on the game. I've titled it Game Flow and Opening Ideas. So these are just kind of general things that I'll lead us into, and Jay, jump in when you have shit to fucking add commentary to it. So I read the exact description from the manual already, but the way the game works is you skate around the grid. You're trying to cover all 4 sides of each square to light it up and claim what is yours. Or claim it as yours, rather. So when you complete a line that awards you the squares on both sides of it, and this is maybe my favorite part of the game. So if you do a line that gives you that basically all 3 other lines on both squares were already done, and you get the line that joins them, you are awarded with what is maybe the best voice sample in video game history.
Come on, boy.
And
Come
I just
on,
fucking
boy.
love it. Yeah, I fucking love it. I love it so much, and I cannot believe, I've said it before when we first talked about the game, I just can't believe that it never gets old. It should get old. It should get annoying. It never gets annoying. I can hear
really
it a million times. We were playing in the co-op thing because you got 2 people going at once. Well, there were sequences where it was just repeating over and over again. Like, it never gets old. It never gets old. It's so good, and I wish there was a way to find out. I need to find out who did the sample. Like I want to talk to that guy and hear him say it in real life.
It's very unique too. Like it's not what I would expect if you were to say, let me grab an actor and do a voiceover sample saying, come on, boy. You know, like it's such a unique way of saying it that it's like, I like it. You get it. It's catchy.
Yeah, it's super catchy. Yeah, it's so much fun. It's just, like you said,
it's got personality. That's what it's got personality in that, come on, boy.
For sure. Yeah, I mentioned we were talking about the title screen. Like, it's just this game is intended to have like this it's not tongue in cheek, but it is just like funny, fun stuff, like something. It's not taking itself seriously at all, which is cool, and it's the right way to do a game like this, I think. So this is just a component of that fits so perfectly, and it also just fits in the phrase. Part of the intrigue and the allure of it is like, who says that? Like, it's not like where did it come from? Why did they choose that line?
That's not something people are just normally saying, like when they do something right or wrong. Like
it reminds me a lot of Toe Jam and Earl. Same system, same time, and that same like just very, very 90s-y deal. But like all the shit that Toe Jam and Earl said were like things that like were catchphrases and were part of that, what they were trying to embody there, And this is just, I've never heard that before. The come on boys, I've never heard it used before. It's such a weird line, but it just works so well for this. It's incredible to me. So much fun. So there are many boards that have unseen squares you can jump to from the main play area, and this is like a big part of this game that's really cool. They're never required as part of your necessary haul to advance to the next level. They're not required squares, but when you do, you can skate around all 4 edges of them, and it draws the lines, and it'll give you bonus points when you do a square. So it, on top of the other things they offer you, they do add to your score as well. So that's pretty cool. And power-ups will appear on these just the same as the main board area. So, and I would say, honestly, at times, some of the boards, more often, they would put them there because they're always over, like, they're over a jump and enemies cannot get to them. They're never on them and they cannot get to them. So these act as a safe haven, as much as they offer, like, whatever other things they offer. So they're not all, or they're sometimes, like the ones in the corners were pretty accessible, but like sometimes they're in places that you can't even get to from all nearby lines, So like, they're not always the quickest or easiest things to get to in general. Cause like part of them, we'll talk about the controls in a moment, but like that letter from the girls in the fucking manual, the developers in the manual, mentions, like, the turning in this game is not the best, and like part of it's kind of intentional probably because it's part of the added difficulty, or at least that's how I want to justify it. But yeah, getting to these remote areas for the pickups that will appear on them is not always the easiest thing. So it's an interesting aspect of this game that like I said, later in the game, I feel like those are areas where you see even more and better pickups. Like there was one level I remember, I want to say on the 6th board, where like it had corner boxes that were not the easiest to get to. I think you could only get to them from like the top and bottom lines and not from the sides. And they would have like 4 sunflowers would appear on all 4 of them, but for really short periods of time, So like, that of course the sunflowers are huge, you're invincible, so you want to go get them, but you're never going to, you just basically, very rarely anyways, would you be able to get anywhere near them in time, but you just instinctively are heading for them. And that's a way to add difficulty. It's like the the extra lives in Mega Man. You know, they put them in this fucked up place that you're going to kill yourself getting to.
You got to try it, though. You got to try it at least once.
Yeah, you got to try it. Yeah, it's too helpful otherwise. Yeah, so it's an interesting way to add difficulty and pretty cool, I think.
Dude, I didn't even know about those things until I tried to write it down. I don't think I actually wrote down when I first realized that you could jump over there. But it definitely was not at first. It took me several stages in until I'm like, how am I supposed to get that? Like, it's in space. And then I was like, wait a minute.
Oh, there's no. That's the cool thing about it. You know, and there's only so many different boards. So once you've went through like the first 2 stages, sets of 6 levels, you've kind of seen every board and you know where these are. But yeah, like when you're first playing the game, like there's nothing visually that tips you off, other than if power-ups appear, obviously out there, of course that tips you off. But if that doesn't happen, there's no way to know where they are at all. You know, you just have to trial and error, jump off lines and see what happens, you know. So pretty cool and well done. And I'm glad that they didn't tip it off in some way, because I think that would have defeated a little bit of the purpose and decreased their significance and the fun of them. So yeah, so that mention of turning controls being a little tricky to master by the Zoom ladies, Heidi and whomever it was, is very accurate. It's like if you, it's how to say this, like it's rather unforgiving. Like if you're missing a turn you're hoping to make, and then the fallout of blowing it is often turning down the next perpendicular line. So like if you fuck up something, like the hitbox, I don't know how to describe it, but like basically the amount of time you have to hit left as you're crossing the line, like it's not the exact pixel. Like you do have some buffer on each side of the line. So if you miss this one, but it's a little bit too long of a miss, you're going to fall into the hitbox for the next line, even though you're not quite at the next line. So that's really the fuck of it, because you can do that, of course, and go on to the next perpendicular line, and it'll be a fucking disaster if there's an enemy there or an enemy coming on that one, you know, that you did not intend to have to interact with or jump over or whatever, you know. So yeah, so that's one of the really big difficulty things about the game, is just getting accustomed to that, figuring it out. And I mean, honestly, I think that's part of why, like, I, you know, would play this on OG hardware with my 6-button arcade stick, thinking it's, you know, it's an arcade game, it's perfect for this. But like, really, the control pad is better for this game because of the way the turns work. And I think that's why I got so much further playing it this time around with my controller and not the arcade stick, you know, because it is and I think a lot of it is these hitboxes for the line turns. So,
dude, that's so tough, man. The number of times that I yelled, I wasn't trying to do that. I wasn't going that direction. Yeah. So many times. But like you could almost even pass a line, and then like you said, you already know you missed that hitbox, so I'm just gonna hit left now, and then you're gonna go there next. That's just how it works. But you can't do that unless you're in a spot where it's okay for you to hit it early and chill. Otherwise, you got to stay active.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Unforgiving.
Very much so. So yeah, and like it's kind of on this same spectrum here. If you want to make a jump to an unconnected perpendicular line, so like say that board where you have the 4 squares, the 4 hidden squares in the very middle. It's like a square with the middle cut out. If you want to jump in there, you can't be traveling along perpendicular to the line you want to jump to and hit up and jump. You have to essentially kind of do like 3 left turns, you know?
Yeah. You got to be going straight at it in some direction. You cannot be going that direction and do a jump. Nope. Yep. You're going that way. You're not going anywhere.
Right. And if you know it and you have that internalized, it's by no means, it's not the end of the world. And I think it's not like a developer fail or anything that I want to bitch about, but it is an added difficulty component that you have to take into consideration. And, you know, no matter how much you internalize it, there are still times when you're really harried where you think to do it and you hit it and you just jump over and maybe into something.
Dude, so many times, because to me, honestly, I got straight up Pac-Mania vibes. So it's a game we talked about before, NES game that I loved growing up. On the NES, you know, it was a 3D Pac-Man, kind of like this, only, you know, picture this Zoom board only with pellets around it, and Pac-Man is able to jump, just like just like Zoom is doing it. Only he's going around picking up pellets, jumping, but he can jump around corners. And so I'm used to being able to do that. So I've tried that so many times. It's like I always wanted to keep trying it in this game, and I just knew I couldn't. Anytime I would just try to, look, maybe this cowboy move will work. No, it's not going to work at all. It just won't let you do that, and it drove me nuts.
Yep. Yeah. It's a little tick thing. It took me quite a while to get a handle on the sound cue, because there's no visual tip off that your invincibility is going to end from the sunflower pickup.
Yes,
Yeah.
why?
The sound cue does wind down, and I eventually was able to tell a little bit. It's still not the most reliable thing, and obviously, it's tough to follow a song. It's like I said, you get fucking stressed out in this game. It gets complicated and hairy and fucking difficult. And trying to you're fucking trying to use that sunflower thing and trying to find lines and when you're invincible, like the best application of that invincibility is trying to get lines that things are essentially standing on. Like if something's patrolling an area,
find the scrub brush that's erasing your stuff.
Exactly right. Get in there and get on top of them. So that's just all the more shit you're dealing with mentally. So trying to listen to the song and be able to tell that it's winding down, and like I said, a relatively subtle wind down. It's by no means, it should have a completely distinct different, there's 5 seconds left tone to it.
Yep.
And it's not that discernible.
Or flashing, your character start flashing or something. Give me some kind of indication.
Yeah, definitely.
I would start freaking out in those situations. The worst would be when you're trying to go over those lines where the scrub brush guy or some of the guys are, and then you miss the hitbox, so you're turning the wrong way. You're like, darn it, I gotta go back and get these other 2 lines, and you're stressing out, is it gonna run out? Is it gonna run out?
Right. Yeah, so many deaths associated with that invincibility end for sure. I lost a lot of lives doing that.
Same.
Yeah. On the topic of death, when you do die, and it will happen often, this is not a cakewalk game, as I've mentioned, but when you do it's like a meh sound plays, like a meh plays, and a cute little ghost outline sprite flies up from your now dead Mr. Smart, and as another less of a bummer sound plays. And the extra life system, it's pretty generous though. So you do die a lot, but unless you're really shitting the bed, I think it's relatively easy to stay ahead of the curve on that. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty cool balance, I think. Yeah. It's not bad at all. If you play the first stage, just as an example, if you play the first stage well, you can get a 1-up from the time bonus points awarded, bumping you from the starting 3 burger to 4. So that just kind of demonstrates the frequency with which, like when I first read that point system, one, you just have no idea how points are going to click, but the 1,000, 3,000, 5,000 thing, I wasn't sure. It's Shinobi was an instance where it did not stack. You got that one, and then that was it. So I was mildly surprised to find that every click of those counter, or every click of that scale, it would restart and you get more. So
yeah, lives did not seem to really be an issue like I thought they would be at first, actually focusing. Unlike our 2-player where I just went cowboy, but normally focus, taking your time, you would generally build up more lives. I had 8, 9 lives at some point. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I finished the game with 6 or so. I did have on my play, there was one instance where it got a little hairy. I think I got down to maybe 1 life at one point. And I was because I didn't save state at all. We'll get to our playthroughs in a moment, but I didn't save state at all. I think later in the game I started saving, but I never had to load. But yeah, there was in the last 2 or 3, I was I'm not going to play all the way through this if I do die here, because I was expecting. We'll get to that too, but I was expecting to really ramp up at the end, and I wouldn't say it did necessarily, but
yeah.
In any event, we'll get to that in a moment. If your timer runs out, a music cue drops. So shit just got real, and then all the enemies get a wee bit more frenzy-ish, as I mentioned earlier, and in some cases additional ones will appear. And yeah, I love the Mr. Smart getting stressed out visual too. It was very cool. So when you do complete all squares on a board or pick up a feather, everything freezes for a moment, and then the enemies all combust in unison, which is a pretty fun animation. And any remaining time on the ticker is counted down to 0, and you get 10 points for each one of those. And finally, the board turns back into the wireframe look that it flew in with. and then spins end over end, flying out at the POV to go away. And then if you're on, so yeah, the format of the stage situation is, it's like it even interesting to me that it's like it gives you the X, the number by number thing, you know, because it's like basically every 6 levels is a new stage, and then it clicks over your stage number clicks over 2. But so it's essentially if it's a number, if it's a level divisible by 6, the number 6, you get a new stage change interstitial. Like I said, they're the same thing, but so it's kind of dumb that you even have those, I guess, but because you can at least skip through them to the game's credit. But a fun thing they do, like we're bitching about the visual dynamic of the stage, the interstitial being the same, they do change the background in each stage. So it changes to a completely different background, and it's like they're like these. They really, to me, I just cannot believe how much they make me think of, because the Genesis is on a 256 color system, you know, and that's the GIF, the old school GIF color table, so our color allotment. So when they're nature scenes, like these really beautiful, serene nature scenes, you know, but they have that look to them of this really old school, like, it's like the exact same time, like 1992 GIF images, and they made me think of. So I used to go to it when AOL first became a thing, dude. And like it wouldn't even run. AOL wouldn't even run on the computer I had. I had like the I'm sure I've talked about it before, this IBM PS2, and it was like 2 megabytes of RAM. I think it was like a 30 megahertz fucking processor. Like just couldn't even run fucking AOL. It was so old even for the time. So my AOL experiences were all other places, other people's houses, right? So, like, I remember there was one, like, a family friend that we would go over, and who the fuck knows, drinking or whatever my parents were doing, and, like, I would just play on their computer. His buddy Al, I think it was. And I would just play on their computer, and they had America Online, so I'd go on America Online and just consume every bit of Buffalo Bills information.
Naturally.
This is like 1996, dude. Every bit of Buffalo Bills information I could get my fucking hands on America Online's shitty little sports offering, you know? And they had images. So I would, on 3.5-inch discs, I would fucking save every single Buffalo Bills GIF I could get my hands on.
Oh,
yeah, I would save them on a disc. GIFs. I think some of them were actually JPEGs, but they were still like, you know, they were not full color deals. They had like that pixelated, granular look to them because there was not a full color table set on these computers, you know. So yeah, just fucking, that's what I think of when I look at these. Is like these really old school GIFs, but pretty fun. So yeah, so each one of these, like nature scene, and then they all kind of have like a hue to them. It's not like well, it's funny, like one of them, and it's not always the first one. Sometimes it's a middle one, and 'cause each level within the stage, the hue of the image changes to a different color. And like one of them will be kind of like as much as you're going to get out of a 256 color situation, a real life coloring to it. But the other 5 will be just like this, like either somewhere between a purple and an orange hue to them, you know, which is pretty cool that it just has like a little bit of a gradual visual change to it and progression to it throughout each thing. Pretty cool. Some level of effort just to give it some aesthetic feel, you know. I didn't even notice them. Like I paused the game is when I started noticing them. Just to pause and do whatever while I was playing the game, and like I realized, oh, those are always there. Like I didn't even know.
I really became aware of it later too. Like, and my son was just like, "Oh, look, it's different colors. Look, oh, that's a different scene." Like, it's like it didn't dawn on me until probably stage 3 or something. Right. I was like, oh, then I started noticing.
I want to say the same one. Yeah, same ones when I really noticed it. Yeah, same thing. So yeah, I started saving them just to give me some visual shit to do the key art with, and like I think I only have levels 3, 4, 5, and 6. I don't have the first 2 because I didn't start noticing it until later. So we'll talk about like I said, there's only, I didn't count the actual different ones, but I would say there's maybe not quite 12. I would say maybe like 10 different boards, somewhere between 10 and 12 maybe. Maybe there is 12 full.
You think that little?
Yeah, I think so. Like I want to say it reset every 2 stages ish.
There was certainly a point, and I don't know when it was. Maybe it was level 4, level 5, where I was like, I've seen this stage. Like where it really got me. I was like, yep. Regardless of color change, I've done the stage. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's definitely some repeats. Yeah, I mean, I'm totally spitballing there. I have no idea. I didn't sit down and count them. I'd be curious to know, I guess, just to know how accurate my subconscious interpretation was as I played. But yeah, there's definitely some repeats for sure. The first stage that you start on is an hourglass shaped board. It's got 40 total squares to deal with, and there's just one enemy to avoid if you're playing on the one-player version anyways. I was surprised, actually, that they doubled the enemies up for the two-player. We'll talk about that in a bit. But if you're playing one player, it's just the one enemy. And it's one of the rowdy fingers, which are the disembodied hands, the green deals. And you have 120 seconds on the timer, just to give you an idea how they roll on that front. And it is every bit the Zoom starter pack you'd expect the first level to be. It's super,
Yeah.
Which is the one enemy to avoid. And, I mean, I guess I'd ask you what your experience was, but you said you finished every level within the timer, so clearly not too hard.
No, I mean, yeah, and this one was clearly easy because you're just kind of getting your feet wet, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, this one also kind of allowed me to say, all right, what is going to be my strategy going forward? Then you start thinking, looking at geometry, thinking about math, like, all right, if I go this kind of shape, how can I minimize the amount of times I go over something again,
Yeah.
So yeah, but pretty straightforward, pretty smooth first level.
Yeah, that's any puzzler game. That's you're talking about, and I'm sure that's what really I fucking like about puzzlers is kind of like this like coming to understand the economy that you're playing within, and then how do I maximize my efficiency within that economy, and like that. Yeah, like we'll get into it in strategies, but like I developed what I perceive to be the way I try to approach a subset of blocks on a stage, and I had my little system that I would try to do that I thought was like the easiest way, because there is no, because you're talking about, like I said, it's 4 left turns. Like there is no right way. I don't think I guess I would love to know the person in me, or the fucked up fucking OCD fucking thing inside of me that is even making me talk about this right now. This particular topic certainly wants to know what is the mathematical ideal solution. Like I would love to see and know what that is, but I have no fucking clue.
Well, it's going to vary by stage, you know what I mean, and by the enemies that you have, because that's going to change everything completely. Yeah. Even if you come out and map out like, okay, this is the ideal way to go, and you're going to cover everything without only backtracking this one little spot. But then when you get enemies, you can't just continue. You can't follow that. You're going to die.
Right. But here's the thing: speedrunners will figure out the math,
the patterns.
The math that even the fucking enemies use, and be able to develop that. So yeah, a speedrun of this would probably be super fucking interesting.
That's beyond what I care to get into.
No, yeah, of course. Speedrunning. I've said I just can't. Like the idea. I don't know, man, whatever floats your boat. But like the idea of spending the amount of time necessary to mathematically optimize a video game playthrough is crazy to me. Like that is crazy.
People love math, man. I mean, honestly, it's even one of those things where, I mean, I've told you, I've gotten back into Elder Scrolls, and even when we were stuck quarantining with COVID, like I was grinding away, getting these new item sets, the last couple weeks, and I have my own process and the things that I try to do to get like the absolute highest damage per second possible. But then, like I just can't go to the next level of the people who look at the numbers and are like, all right, since the crit cap is this, blah blah blah. I'm like, I will listen to what you say for sure. I will take that. I'm not going to crunch it myself. Like, thank you for that information. I will apply that. Yeah. I'm not going to go that level. That's just too much. Then it's not a game to me anymore. I lost it.
Yeah. I'm glad you have this much time. I applaud you for devoting it to it and enjoying something that much and being willing to embrace it in that way. Like I have no qualms with that and nothing shitty to say about it, but I just can't imagine myself personally. It's way too much. So that's stage 1, and stage 2 is the last one we'll talk about specifically. This board is a pretty big jump in difficulty, in my opinion. Like, it's one of the harder boards in the game. It's interesting to me that it's the second one, because the real difficulty of this game, in my opinion, is tight spaces. When you're put in tight spaces and you don't have a lot of options, like basically when you start cutting off the number of ways I can turn off a line, this game gets harder, obviously. So this one particularly for being only the second level, has a lot of that. Like that central area is a bitch to deal with, if you're not invincible. And like, and all the enemies will pack onto that baby too. Like, they're not the patterns, like none of the enemies are like confined. Like they don't get confined to a certain area. All the enemies can go anywhere. So if
wait, you mean like stage 1, 2? Is that what you mean?
Say again?
You mean stage 1, 2? Or
yeah.
Oh, okay, stage 1, 2. I thought you meant like stage 2,
right,
1 through 2.
And I use the terminology. You're absolutely correct, Jay. I should have said level 2. You're right. Stage 2 is stage 2 is 2-1 and level 7 essentially. So yeah, you're right. So the central area on 1, 2.
But it is hard. It is hard. I agree then what you're saying, because it wasn't until we did, honestly, our 2-player playthrough. Now clearly I beat the game. I'm used to kind of jumping and seeing that little space in the middle, like, I'll just jump across. But when I was doing it at first, I was just like, oh my gosh, how do I get around here?
Yeah. But even then, like, you're not, like, that's not the jumping to other, like, you can't, because of, like I said, you kind of got to get that run up to it. You can't just impromptu jump for the most part in that area. You have to, like, that's to be planned, I guess is what I'm saying. It's not a reactionary choice. It's a deliberate choice in a lot of cases. I mean, occasionally you can use it as a last resort and it work out right, but if you do that as your chief evasion tactic, you will die.
Oh often. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So yeah. But the enemies they can get anywhere, and like if you incentivize them and lead them to congregate in that middle area, and all three of them can here, it gets way fucking harder, and it's a very packed area for 3 enemies. So yeah, it's not an easy level, I would say, particularly compared to the first. So yeah, it's mostly a square, but it's divided up into 3 sections that are connected by single squares in the top left and bottom right corner. So you have a single line of 12 squares covering the left boundary and turning right and covering the top boundary. So left and top, and then you have a mirroring of that covers the bottom and right boundaries, also 12 squares. And then lastly, a hodgepodge of 4 rows of 3 squares, each row missing a different square in the sequence of 4 spaces, which is probably impossible to follow via word. If you look at it, if you pull up a playthrough or play the game, you'll see exactly what I'm saying. And so it's another 12 total squares. So if you add in the 2 squares that join the middle to the edges, you have a total of 38 squares. So it's not 40 every time, which I was kind of surprised that it changes, but I guess it makes sense with some of the boards. There's no way you could fit 40 on there. So it does change. And yeah, there's 3 enemies here. You have 1 rowdy finger, 1 charmer, the jellyfish that slows you down, and then 1 spiler, the line scrubbing brush. And they'll all chase you to all sections at all times, so they're not confined. You got to deal with them no matter where they go. And yeah, getting those middle squares can be like a huge pain in the ass, man. Like I don't know. Yeah, I mean, just fucking once they're populating in there. I mean, honestly, the only way to deal with it, really, I think, is to get invincible. Like I don't think you can go in there and like if you, I don't know, we're like trying to do a playthrough where you didn't use those or something to add difficulty to your life. Like I don't think I would be wildly impressed with a playthrough. Oh, for sure.
You got to go outside on this one. Get what you can on the outside. Then once you've led the fingers to you, then you go middle, get as much as you can, grab your invincibility, and then cover what you missed. You got to save that until that comes up. But you got to keep an eye out for that one for sure.
Yep. Yeah, and hope that scrub brush prick didn't wipe out what you did.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the first 2 stages. I know in our notes here I put strategies next. Let's actually save that for the second act because I think we're pretty light on the post-break content here. So let's just talk about how far we were able to get, high score, and then we'll cut out of this section. You said you did beat it, yeah?
I did, and I hit 51,000.
Did you?
Yeah.
51,000? You motherfucker.
Wow, what'd you get?
50,870.
What? Are you kidding? So close.
That's
so freaking close.
That's so close. That's hilarious.
Nice. I almost had to double check. I was like, wait a minute, because the end sequence went so fast. The end sequence.
Yeah.
I went so fast. I was like, I didn't see my score, so I had to wait through the final sequence to see it again.
Oh, did it pop up back after that? I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I recorded my last few levels.
Okay.
So the end of the game because I knew I'd want the end sequence for just to be able to do notes on and shit. Right. So yeah, that's that. I definitely had to go back and look at the video. I had no clue what the game ended. Yeah, whatever. We'll get to it in a second here. But so I'd played this a shit ton prior to playing for this app, and I don't think I'd ever made it past, dude. Like I think somewhere in the third stage. Maybe I got to early 4, but nowhere near the end of the game. And I was kind of like Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I knew we were fucking recording today, so like I was like, got a fucking nose to the grindstone. Got at least as far as I actually intended on not finishing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I intended that I would not be able to finish it, and just whatever though. It's a puzzle game. We can get to an
Right.
episode. I don't need to finish this. So I didn't expect to be able to, and then I got like Thursday night. I just fucking sat down and started playing through it, and like I got through 3 and then 4, and like I just got into a groove with it, and I was just like waxing stage after stage after stage. Mm-hmm. And I just blew right through 3, 4, 5, and 6, and no save stating, no bullshit, just busting Zoom ass. And even like the last board, like 6-6, it's one of the complete square things, no spacing at all, which makes for I guess what I'm getting here, like the end of it, like I mentioned a little bit ago, it did not ramp up the way like the last few stages were easy as fuck to me, and like part of that's obviously just the accumulated groove that I'm talking about. I've been playing for hours, so broken up a little bit, but playing for hours, and it just, that I'm sure lends itself to just being in the zone and like fucking, just that hammer on that jump button and like not, being able to fucking survive. But I was just, I was surprised. It did not, I expected 6-6 to be like, especially when you see the wireframe coming in, so what you're getting yourself into before you start the level. So like when that wireframe's coming in and it's a full square for what I knew was the last level, I was like, oh my God, this is going to have a million fucking enemies on it. And it wasn't. Like it had, I think it had 4 total, 1 rowdy finger, 1 globule, 1 jellyfish, 1 spiny thing was the whole last level, And I was just like, that's fucking, it was cake. Like the last level was fucking
I kind of
cake.
like that the last level was like that. That it wasn't like this weird thing that you had to try to conquer. I don't know. When I look at a puzzle or game and think of a game like this, I think of just kind of relaxed enjoyment. Like, yes, there's definitely intense moments. Like, I would not just say, if I want to have a chill evening, I'm going to play this game. That would not be what I would do. But, like, for a puzzler type of game, I kind of like that the final, like, and I put it in my 3 favorite levels. Like, I kind of like, in addition to, that this was a big square to kind of just let me just, instead of trying to just do all these mental gymnastics, let me just apply everything I've learned and just cover everything here, in the finale. That's the way I viewed it.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I got nothing negative to say about that. That's a good point. So when you, as far as the end of the game goes, you dust that last square off on the last level, and we get the wireframe animation as we have for all the previous ones, but this time it's green instead of the yellow or pink or whatever it is. So it does a thing where it flies at you, and then it cuts to Earth, like that shot of Earth, and then a sweet success ditty fires up, and we have some yellow stars converge on top of it before circling it, and then a character montage inside of the star circle over top of the planet Earth sprite starts up. Mr. Smart comes first, and I would say the artwork for these is pretty damn solid. Like, I was actually pretty impressed with how good they looked. And you also have, while this plays, you have the credits fading from one to the next up top, full names, giving credit where credit is due. No bullshit hiding programmer name stuff that you'll see on some games of this era. And when that finishes up, in customary arcade game fashion, this shit starts back over, which I don't know if I expected, but I guess it's not surprising. The only difference visually is the stage number font on the interstitials is red now instead of green, so it does like marker that you're doing something different, Mm-hmm. And sure enough, dude, that first, did you all the way to the first board?
I didn't play the first board. I saved it and I was like, I might come back here. I'm gonna do it later, but I did not.
I did the same thing. I saved stated it too. I was like, maybe I'll come back and try it. So did you even see it pop up, or did you just
I watched it pop up and then I just saved it right there and paused it.
Yep. Yeah. So the first board appears, and it's the same board. It's the Hourglass board, just the same, but the layout did not have the 1 rowdy finger. It had a shit ton of the spiny things on it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like 4 or 5 of them.
Right. I didn't turn it off immediately. I was like, let me just see what happens here. And like those things disappear and reappear. So like I died, I don't know, 7 seconds into the level. So yeah, it's I'm guessing a substantial uptick in difficulty going through the game a second time. But it does, I don't know, it depends what it is. Like, the the easiest historical benchmark for this is the very first episode in Ghosts and Goblins, which notoriously starts over when you beat the game and doesn't even give you the ending. Like it is like that's the thing. Like I don't know. There's a way to do that, and there's a way not to do it. And I think it's a puzzler, so you want replayability out of it, of course, and you want this more difficult thing in this case for sure. And the story is very ancillary and very secondary to your play experience and the difficulty of just the puzzler component of it. So I think in the case where I would and did highly criticize Ghosts and Goblins for it, it was right. It was right to me. And like the idea that it is like I said, just that drastic difference in that very first board with the enemies you're dealing with. Like I said, I can only imagine what some of them get like. Yeah. I think it's right. It's good, and I like that aspect of it, even though I did not want to play it right away. So pretty fucking fun. So yeah, we already talked about our high scores. I can't believe it was only 130 apart. Like think about what that like. That's like, yeah, right? Dude, no fucking way. I'm telling you, Jay, you're wrong. You're wrong. There's no way, unless I guess there is other scoring metrics that are scoring things that like maybe I got more of, but like the idea, like I'm telling you, dude. I'd say at least a third, maybe half. The timer ran out on me on. And the idea that we're only 130 points apart at the end of the game.
So the idea, if the timer ran out on you, but you didn't save state, right?
No.
I was save stating, so I didn't
okay.
remember. So there were times when, like, I did much better on many levels. I was just, like, killing it and should have just kept going. But I was like, I'm talking to them. The kids are like talking to me while I'm playing, so I'm just like, I would mess up and be like, "Darn it! I should have just like kept going with that one." But I'm just gonna start over, So I would just.
Okay.
Yeah,
right,
it's not true. Right. It's not true as I would like it to be.
Okay. That's all right. I can buy that, I guess. But yeah, it's still surprising to me that our scores could be that close. Even with that taken into consideration, I guess it's still surprising to me that I guess I could have like gotten enough bonus points otherwise to come in that close.
Well, I'll put it like this: how often did you actively go after like the bananas and the candies and the mushrooms? Like, did you go after those things? Because I did not at all.
Bananas, yeah, because the bananas have an effect on the game.
If it wasn't a timer or a sun, star, or flower, I was ignoring it. Like, if I just happened, if something was in my path, yeah, I'd grab a mushroom if it was in my path. But otherwise, I ignored those. So I left a lot of points on the table.
I'm trying to watch here and see if you even get points. I'm sure you get points for the banana of some kind, but I don't know. It's still surprising to me, man.
And did you also get all of the blank squares? Did you also make all those whenever you had the opportunity? Because I did not also. I did it when I would go over there, but I didn't always like complete everything to get points.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say I ever did them. There's times where like maybe I don't need to do this. I'm just grabbing them just to kill time or whatever it occurred to me. But like more often than not, getting those was a function of using them as a defense mechanism. Not I want the 100 points that this gives me. So right. I'm sure there were times I did, but that was never my focus with them. I used them mostly for defense, and there were certainly levels where I did not get them. So
got it. Okay.
But most of the time, I probably did. I don't know. What have you? After these messages,
we'll be right back.
Hey kid, what you doing watching this stupid film? Don't you want to have fun playing Sega?
Sega? Sega who?
Wrong answer, pal. Show him.
It's new, it's wild, it's Sega. International Sega TV games are now here. From Shaw Wallace.
Hey kid, want some more? Yeah.
Unlock your mind.
That is an India Market Sega Mega Drive commercial, which is in English, and that surprised me.
That was great, man. I love that commercial.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I would have thought. My assumption was I was watching and I was like, well, I don't know. You watch it for the first time, you're just kind of like experiencing it, whatever. Mm-hmm. But like I finished it and I was like Hindi has got to be the dominant language there. Like, why in the fuck is this in English?
English is the language you learn for school and stuff. You know what I mean? So,
well, I did research on this, dude. I looked into it because I was that intrigued. So Hindi is by far the dominant language there. Like by far, the 2011 census showed 528 million spoke Hindi as their first language. 43.63% of the population, compared to just 259 speaking English as their first language. Now,
that's your first language. That's different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like there, it's essentially a 3-language system. And there's a shit ton of, I don't know what you call it, tribal is the wrong word, but like there's a bunch of smaller
dialects. There's all kind of regional dialects.
Yeah, exactly, regional. Yeah. So there is 129 million additional that speak English as either their second or third language. So it comes out to about 10.67% of the population speaking it to some degree, but that's still a very small amount of the population.
Wait, when were these? Where are you getting these figures from? Are they
2011 census?
Okay, 2011. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Because when I went over to India, probably, I don't know, was it 4 years ago? I asked them about that, and they're like, yeah, everybody, speaks whatever their regional dialect is, mainly, Hindi or blah, blah, blah. But then, like, when you go to school, like, especially you want to go to university and everything, like, you learn in English because that's where you got to do. So, like, I think much more, it's something that as a kid you're going to learn. Like, maybe not the older, maybe not everybody uses English, but going forward, like, everybody's going to learn English over there. And that's why I appreciated this commercial so much, is because I could totally see somebody putting it on there and kind of like putting this whole thing on. Although I will say, the fact that it's from Shaw Wallace, like, he must have some exclusive deal, man. Like, did he get rights from Sega to be able to do that?
I saw that, but I have no idea who that is. Is that someone I should know?
Dude, no, I have no idea either, but like, to me, it just looks like
I assumed it was a company name.
Maybe, but at the same time, it sounds like somebody got a deal to be able to exclusively sell Sega in India, or market it. If they're going to have a Sega commercial, like, a commercial is a commercial. You're not going to be like from Shaw Wallace unless it's like
Shaw Wallace that's 2 last names, dude. That's not that's a company name, I bet. You scared me. I thought like you started talking like I was like, oh my god, is this like some massive international conglomerate that I don't know about or something? Yeah,
I'm just thinking a dude has the rights to sell it. So he's like, hey, I write in a deal. I'm selling. You want to sell Sega in India? Come to me. I got you. It's going to be
back
Jerry
in the day,
Baxtron.
It's like, learning what I've learned about the film distribution industry and stuff. Yeah, but I mean, back pre-internet days, man. Dude, a single motherfucker with the right relationships could do crazy shit. Like,
exactly.
There was no the power distance was minuscule in places where there was no one to mediate it or gatekeep it. There's a lot of crazy shit, backdoor dealing and stuff that would happen in the film industry prior to, kind of being it all kind of becoming accessible and transparent and understanding, and like in turn bigger corporations moving in and occupying all spaces because like there was a time when you didn't even know what the spaces were and you couldn't find out because you couldn't research. There's just no way to. You had to be the person there that knows the person, or there's no way to even know that relationship possibility exists, let alone have the relationship. So yeah, it's very interesting to me. So yeah, it's. I mean, what I was able to glean from doing this research, like I guess in 1987 there was a big, some sort of doctrine or some piece of legislation that got put into place that mandated both Hindi and English as like things that you have to learn in school. So in 1987 is when like I think a big legislative shift happened, and it became part of the like base learning knowledge, and in turn is going to kind of become something that a lot more people are going to be forced, even if they don't want to learn. But what I also saw was that particularly like the English as their first language people are like the elite of within their caste system. Like there's a 259,000 total that were English as their first language, like 0.02% of the population. So yeah, those are described to be in most cases as like the elite upper 0.01% kind of situations. And I would say even especially. Keep in mind this is I'd guess probably 92-ish, considering the one they show is it's the Mark II, like the second redesign of the system, so it's not even the very first Mega Drive. So I'd put it in kind of a couple years after the initial release of the system. Otherwise, so I'd guess that their idea was like essentially like there's some affluence that comes along with speaking English, and I don't know everything about India, but my understanding there's a great deal of poverty there. A very large subset of the population lives in an impoverished fucking situation. So they're not buying Sega Genesis. They probably don't even have TVs to watch the fucking thing. So, like, I get, like, it being very much a financial decision to be like, the people that can afford to give us money speak this language. Even though way more people speak this language, you know, and like that's very, you know, marketing company decision making there for sure, you know, like what how can we maximize the profit of this expenditure?
Yeah.
You know, so interesting stuff that came out of our commercial we normally don't get. The little kid, so yeah, the actual description of it, the little kid is being blown out of his chair by a TV displaying Mega Drive games, and Sonic is doing the talking for Sega there, like a little animated Sonic. And yeah, we already talked about it's the second model shown, so a little bit later in the product cycle, I guess. So yeah, let's talk strategies now, since we tabled that out of the first section here. I just have 3 of them, so I maybe want to go first with yours, and we'll just
sure. Yeah, not many more than that. Probably like the same amount. So the first one really is to just trace lines as long as possible, right? And so I like to kind of go outline if I can. And just in general, to try not to turn until I need to, and to not have lines that are halfway done, because that's when you create those situations where you're like, oh, what did I not cover?
And you can cover a line so fully, but not complete it, that it's indiscernible. You can't even tell. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's not flashing. So if you stare long enough at the board, you're going to see it, but when you're also trying to fucking run around and avoid things, and it's later in the cycle, so you're probably going to be out of time unless you're Jay, and that makes everything even more harried. So like trying to find the one square that's not flashing in that busy ass space can be very frustrating. So yeah, it's definitely ideal to not leave unfinished lines for sure.
For sure. So I mean, just to draw as long lines as possible and try to do outlines, you know, that kind of reduces that possibility. And another thing is just trying to, I mean, I touched on it earlier, but trying not to go over the same place if you can. And so I would try to, like, especially on the first level with the kind of the inverted diamond kind of shape, I would just try to make big boxes and then just, you know, try to make a rectangle and then go back in and a smaller shape within that, you know, and then cover a different shape outside of it, so that I'm always making a new square or rectangle somewhere, getting a box somewhere, and then just trying to avoid the enemies while I do that. So that was kind of like what I would try to do. But then as I got later on, my other strategy would be skate around at the beginning. If it's a level where there's a space where I can jump off, where I may try to jump off, I would go there first and just trying to skate around, making little squares, waiting for the items to pop up, because on some of those levels they would pop up in predetermined spots. So like on one level it'd just be like they're all in a diagonal here, and so okay,
control the area. Yeah,
exactly. If the sunflowers are popping up at the top of this diagonal, I'm gonna hang out up here and then wait till they pop up again, grab one, and then do what I need to do. So I would kind of...
All the more crazy that you're saying you never ran out of time.
Well, because I'm not taking a long time. I'm still like, you know, covering squares.
I can't stop harping on this shit. I can't stop harping on this no time thing.
Well, it's not like I'm dilly-dallying, you know. I'm not hanging out. I'm more like covering some squares. I'm doing like strategy in 2 or 1. Sure, yeah, while I'm keeping an eye on. I'm kind of like basically spacing out, covering squares while looking, all right, where are they going to drop? Where are they going to drop? Oh, there they are. And then attack, you know.
Word. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because, yeah, I always, I shouldn't say always, I'm sure I did all sorts of crazy random shit early on, but like my groove system was kind of the opposite of that. Like, I focused on, like, I want to get this full square now. Like, I don't want to do 3 lines, come back to this later. You know, I'm trying to get, like, finish this area off and, like, not have to come back here under any circumstance for anything purposeful anyways, other than evasion, you know? So yeah, right. So I sometimes do the redundant thing, like even if it's just like just 1 square at a time, even if I'm wasting.
And that's how you ran out of time, Josh.
That's probably a factor for sure. But yeah, I would also do, so like, Like the best example of it is that the level where you have like the square cut out in the middle, and it has like the outer boundaries is just the one strip of squares, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like I would kind of do like a crisscross thing where you're like, you know, you fucking essentially do 3 sides of the one square, then that's the bottom side of the square above you, do the left top of the second square, then the third square you're doing right top.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Kind of like
yeah,
that. So then when you come back down it, and you go all the way around, go all the way to the end of the thing and loop back, you're doing the same shape but in the opposite direction, and you're hitting that last one that you left on each one, you know, and you can do full strips that way. And that was kind of an efficiency thing, I guess. But yeah, like even that's like kind of like a partition situation where like, yeah, I'm trying to like complete an area so I don't have compartmentalization. Like I am a highly compartmentalized minded individual. Like I want to do things in subsets. I want to feel the satisfaction of completing a portion of a bigger task, you know. Bullet points. I want to check things off. I want to fucking know that I've made progress, you know. So yeah, like I would I guess prioritize that over any sort of larger arcing time focused efficiency effort. You know what I mean?
Got it.
So yeah, it's funny that those two are conversely.
Yeah, I think I actually had a similar strategy at first where I was like, all right, I'm going to get the square. I'm going to try not to move on. But then with those sweeper things, so often that would just erase things. I was like, I'm going to have to go back anyway. So I just abandoned that altogether.
That's why I wanted to complete them, because those fucking sweeper things. I didn't want them to be able to erase any progress I'd made. Yeah. So that was part of my motivation with that too. Yeah, I already mentioned the projectiles thing, like never using those, and they would actually. No. It's funny that I'm so pleased to hear that like you had the same problem, like that's not a specific thing to me, that's like somehow ingrained in the human condition. For sure. Like the mixing up the buttons, even though there's only 2, like that was very.
I was like, are you kidding me? There's 2 options for jump, and I still when you introduce that extra one with the rubber ball.
Yeah, they completely throw the whole fucking system out of whack. Monkey wrench in the whole system. Yeah. Jumping. We danced on it a little bit, but yeah, like once that is when the gameplay really took a turn, and I started to really be able to jam on this fucking game, is when I really started leaning on and using the jumping for, jumping over gaps, but also just within the field of play, using that as a evasion tactic, even when I'm not trying to leave the main board, you know, just using it as a way to get around, and like even like I said, planning on it. Like I'm making this turn onto a line of 6 squares, seeing that enemy sprite coming 4 squares away, knowing I'm going to get to jump and then B2, you know, like that level of planning with it, with using the jump is really the way to get good at this game, I think, and to really be able to whoop ass on the later stages, because there's just so much shit going on, you know, you can't. Yeah, there's just no fucking way to just move and avoid everything and be able to accomplish what you need to accomplish, you know. Yeah,
agreed.
And then the last thing I have is using those invisible areas and squares as getaways when needed. Key. And I mean, I would sometimes I would get onto those things as a way to tackle an area that might be being patrolled heavily by a certain enemy, and you know, whatever, if I'm not going to wait for a sunflower to solve the puzzle for me, like jump onto one of those and like literally jumping back and forth, just getting a line at a time, you know, and like just hitting like a line or 2 and knowing I'm going to have to go back to the thing, regroup, and come back to the same area that's directly adjacent to it, you know, and using that as a way to fucking tackle a certain area. So yeah, those things are so clutch and can be so helpful if you use them. To their
once you get the hang of it.
Yep. For sure. So those are our strategies. I guess the favorite 3 levels, and like I didn't even write down like specific levels. I just have certain boards in mind that I like.
Yeah.
So if you want to, maybe we'll alternate. You want to go first, and we'll alternate.
Sure. I mean, I already mentioned it, so I'll bear the 6x6, and I mean, kind of. It's funny because I call it 6x6, the last one. That one and like 1 by 6 also were very similar in that they were both big squares.
Yeah.
You know, and just nothing crazy, but a big square and enemies, put together what you got and figure it out. And I think I liked it just because you got used to adjusting your mindset on the fly to each different board shape and like how you're going to jump and how it's going to be different. And this was kind of just like, all right, don't worry about that, just focus.
And I'm even watching the playthrough here. I watched this person do one of those just recently, and he was doing the same thing that I did with those, which is an incredibly satisfying way to tackle them. Is like, yeah, you do essentially the two full horizontal rows at a time, do the full outline, and then blow through the middle, and then you can just literally wind back and forth and just come on boy, over and over and over again. And yeah, that's a really satisfying way to do a level if the enemies don't fuck it up.
Right.
So, yeah. Word. So I really dig, my favorite one probably is the one, it's kind of the same thing. It's just like a more, again, compartmentalized version of it. The one with the 3 horizontal rows that are just 2 squares vertically. Each one with just like each set of 2 rows has just the 1 square that joins them. In the top
that was
right
going to be my
left.
next level. So yes, we also have that one. Yep.
Right, yeah. Yep. So yeah, they're 2 squares vertically and maybe 10-ish horizontally. And yeah, they're joined just by the 1 block. And yeah, and again, kind of just the compartmentalized thing. My other ones kind of allude to this too. Like it separates them out and allows you to kind of tackle them as an individual problem set and not have to worry about that enemy that's over there coming over and fucking with you. You know, because if it's more joint or more of an open layout, like the things will all just converge on you. Whereas on those levels like that, you could kind of just deal with whatever's here, and as long as you didn't aggro it to the area that allows them to move onto the next thing, you didn't have to deal with them. That was pretty satisfying.
Yeah, and I think this one was unique to me. I think it was stage 3 too, because it's one of the first stages where I recognized the pattern, where like the bonuses were like in a diagonal, and I was like, oh, and that I kind of started paying attention then. And then yeah, for the same thing that you said, like the enemies were separate, and I also learned like, oh, so this I can just jump across these like when I need to. Like that's when I really started employing
teaching
jumping as like a technique.
Enemies, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I started like really getting into the groove in this one. I was like, okay, it kind of came together on this level.
Yeah, it's funny the thing with the items. I certainly noticed patterns, but it never occurred to me to try to exploit those patterns predictively. And that kind of bums me out that didn't occur to me. Because, yeah, I mean, there were certain situations, like I said, there was the one level where the sunflowers appeared on all 4 kind of corner columns or corner spaces that were hidden. But I didn't think to do that a lot, you know. It's kind of a good tactic for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, the other one that was very in that vein, rather, was the one that's 4 completely separate islands, you know.
Okay.
And like 2 of them, I think in all instances, 2 of them would be completely unpopulated. So you just have the 2, each with an enemy on. They're super small, so I think one of them was the Q, and the other one was like a scrub brush maybe on at least one of them. And like the Qs are a real bear to fucking deal with in a small, tiny area.
Yeah.
They can change and do anything on you. So not easy by any length, but it is a very satisfying thing to just be able to just glide over in and like literally employ your maximum efficiency interpretation of how to tackle that one space, you know, is a really satisfying thing. So pretty fun. So yeah, I liked those. And do you have one more? Or?
I mean, I had 1-6, 6-6 were the same, and then 3-2, and then yeah, the only other one I had was it was 5-6, and the only way I can describe it is it was almost shaped like a robot. Like there was stuff in the middle, there was like a big spot in the middle, and then a couple that. It almost just looked like a part to a machine. I don't know how to explain it other than that, but almost like 2 parts on the upper quadrant in the corner and corresponding diagonal. And that was cool too because it was like you had the big area where everybody could get to, but with your jumping skills, you could easily work on those outer quadrants without the enemies could get there, but it was a harder path for them to reach. So you could you could lead a fingers there and dip out if you were fast enough and cover more space. So that was a fun one as well.
Yeah, it's actually the playthrough is on it right now.
Oh yeah,
and it actually has the thing that. So my last one that I wrote down was any level that had the hidden squares in the corner, because I already described, like I would use those as like these kind of like launching pads for operations. It was just very nice to have those to work from on levels where they were present. Yeah, this level, it looks like maybe like a satellite or some sort of I can't. It reminds me. You know what it actually reminds me of? There was a certain type of, I think the Connects, certain type of building block toy that I can't quite put my finger on the name of that it actually looks like. But yeah, cool levels for sure. Word? Okay. Well, oh no, 2-player. We talked about 2-player. So yeah, we fired it up, and I fucking fucked up the recording of it, so you probably didn't want to watch it anyways, but if you did, you won't be able to. Yeah, we played the competition iteration of the 2-player thing, which it was very cool that it was fucking kind of like essentially a couch co-op mode that not as combative as maybe the title suggests.
I feel like that's the type of mode that I would default to easily. Like if growing up, if I had this game, like brother, cousins over, whoever, like this would be my default. Like, let's play that mode.
Yeah, it's fucking this is this is I immediately played it, immediately added it to our shit worth playing list. Like, it's the perfect kind of game to just pick up and fuck around with, and like that certainly applies to 2 players too. And like that is definitely the way to do it, because you don't have the hardest part about 2 players on a game like this is like the sitting and waiting, and like and there is a satisfaction. This definitely has it. That Tetris effect that we've talked about, of like where you watch someone else do it and you're like, that's not, you think to yourself, that's not how I would have done it, or I would have done it differently. Like that's 100% present in this game, and you can glean all sorts of enjoyment out of that as just a bystander while someone else plays. But it's obviously not as fun as playing, and the idea that you could have the same experience, same time is a really appealing thing, especially for kids, with of course no fucking attention spans. So
right,
that was very cool of them to add that, and a very nice way to play the game for sure. No real differences though. I mean, there's the word double the enemies. I guess that's worth saying, that they doubled it, which is to me, and I'm curious. You died on that was like the second or third level of stage 2, so we didn't play really far into the game. And I'm curious to see whether that is applicable.
Carry through?
Yeah, because there's times where like if you go from 4 to 8, like that's a fucking big jump on some of those levels. So I'm guessing and kind of hoping, I guess, that it doesn't scale uniformly across the whole playthrough.
It can't be a linear scale. Like, it can't be.
Don't say can't anything on an old video.
I mean, it should. Otherwise, the difficulty is turned way up.
Got to ramp up. I mean, because that's the thing though, is like they by doing that at all, it suggests that they perceive it to be half as difficult, and it's not half as difficult. It's not half as the evasion component is there, and it is not a 2-to-1 ratio at all in how things change by adding a second player to cover squares. Like, it's not the amount of time you have to cover them, which is all that condenses. The challenge in the game is not dying while you cover them. It's not a matter of how many there are now. I mean, it is obviously harder to get more, but it's not a 1-to-1 at all, for sure. Yeah. Very fun. Highly recommend that too. If you're digging this game, that's definitely a great way to consume it. So let's talk about, in a very unclimactic teaser, whether or not this is going to get King Lorg's blessing, Jay.
That is the finale track, bringing us perfectly into our verdict. Josh, what do you think?
Yes. It's probably my favorite puzzle.
Big shocker there.
Yeah, it's my favorite puzzle ever, I think. I don't... Yes, I think I enjoy this more than I enjoy Tetris.
Whoa. All right. Different kind of game.
I don't not like Tetris, but especially... Like the NES, I hate the NES Tetris is not good. I don't even kind of like playing the NES Tetris. The Game Boy one is the one I probably have the most affinity for.
Yep.
And I definitely enjoy this more than I enjoy the Game Boy Tetris. So yes, I mean,
Fair enough.
there's little tiny gripes. I think I've managed to justify all the little controller bitches I have as being deliberate developer choices to impose difficulty on the game. Like, I think the tone of it is fun. I love that fucking sound cue. The music is great. There's a lot of it, I think, for what the game is. Like, you don't ever get sick of the music playing. There's not like it's not relying on. Yeah. Actually, that's one of the bitches about fucking Game Boy Tetris is the fucking only 2 songs, and you have to choose them. It doesn't even alternate them. It chooses. You have to choose one, and you listen to it the entire time.
The whole time.
Great, that's a Game Boy title, and I don't even know if the NES one is the same way or not. But just as an example of there being kind of a nice amount to the soundtrack. Yeah, plenty of fun pickups. The enemies are varied enough. The difficulties they impose on the game is varied enough. Like, there's no snakes. Like the default dumbass video game enemy. It's just everything is creative and unique and I'm surprised. I'm really surprised that this developer otherwise has nothing worth talking about. Because it is such to me, an original and unique creative work. You know what I mean? For the time. So
I don't know, man. Yeah, I would agree. Did I have fun? Yeah. Like, would I recommend it to someone else? We already did. If they're in the market for like some low key puzzle type action, like, yeah, why not? Like, if this was remastered, like in some later, like nicer looking form, on a current gen platform, like,
I'll fuck.
play it.
Can you imagine? Like, dude, holy shit. Can you imagine like a fucking VR? Because this is like, it's trying to be a 3D situation. You know what I mean? The idea of putting this in VR would be a fucking blast.
I think it would be amazing, because there were times when we were playing it and Zion kept saying like, oh, it's like 3D before there was 3D, kind of, and I was like, I understand what you're saying, but I wanted to like see closer and like, if it was in VR, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, man. Holy shit. Yeah.
Any kind of re-rendering. So yeah, I'm a fan. I will say at later points in the levels, there was definitely a point where I was like, all right, I could see people's gripes. Or after playing 20 some levels of these, I was like, okay, but I would still pick up and play it if I was bored. So
yeah. By the time I got, because I mean, there is a. Attrition's the wrong word. It's a little strong, but like there is like a lull to playing this where you're like, okay, I've kind of like, you're starting to see the repeats of the boards. Mm-hmm. Like there's maybe not as much quite as much variance as you might like in that aspect of it. But by the time that started to wear on me, I was close enough to the known end, in such a groove in my skill level that I was able to overcome that and want to personally finish. Like I said, I expected to not finish and still did. I think that is kind of the physical embodiment of what I'm getting at here. Like, I had no intention of actually finishing the game or even being able to, let alone wanting to. And when it came down to it, I ended up doing so and did it with bells on, without hesitation. Yeah. So, I was pleasantly surprised. Yep. And that's kind of thing too. Like, as much as I'd played it, and part of that is like the controller discovery. Like I said, I think is part of this. But I guess I had played it more casually to date, and like the idea of really sitting down and nose to the grindstone and really trying to get better at it, I was surprised at how much I was able to do that, given how much I'd already played. So I think that also demonstrates like a spectrum of ability that maybe you wouldn't guess this game has looking at it on the surface when you first play it. You know what I mean? As far as being able to develop and get better at the game. And that is a credit to gameplay, I think, so. Yes, play Zoom. And fuck, Jesus Christ, we got to get in touch. We got to find a VR developer and get this fucking going, dude. That's $1 million idea. Let's go right now. We will. Well, we gotta find our. Do you have these resources at the? At
Somebody
can
get it done. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
You don't. They have. Don't they have a? Not kind of an app lab situation. Don't they have like a developer program? Like
ID at Xbox. Like, it's huge.
So you have a database. Games, You have a database of people that are probably good at this that are dying. All you got to do is, I'm one of the bigwigs there. Like, let's talk and let's have a fucking Zoom and get this going, Jay. This is $1 billion idea.
Let's go. Let's do it.
We'll talk about it offline. So next up is GamePro issue 11. So So we're back on the Game Pro tip. You can subscribe to the pod on the platform provided by whatever dumbass company that serves up your pottery. Please rate and leave positive shit for the pod on that podcast platform of choice, or any other for that matter. The website is nyehentertainment.com/ISOHpod. Email us directly at isohpodcast@gmail.com and tell us that thing I couldn't figure out earlier. And follow the pod on Facebook and or Instagram. You can link to, or there is a link to the pod or to the YouTube playlist on the show notes or in the show notes. There's the ISOH subreddit if you want to get down with us on Reddit and hate Mark Zuckerberg. We don't have a Patreon, but if you like giving money to things podcasters tell you to and would like to do so in our direction, the Able Gamers Foundation creates custom gaming rigs for gamers with disabilities, and that is cool as fuck. AbleGamers.org is where you can find them. There's t-shirts on the website. They're dope, and proceeds on those after pod expenses go to Able Gamers. Jay, what are your socials?
Gentleman JB without the second E. That is my gamer tag, pretty much across all the platforms.
I am on Twitter at Josh Folan. I'm on Instagram at MyShiftKeyIsBroke. My Oculus tag is MyShiftKeyIsBroke. And I still haven't turned on my Xbox to change that to MyShiftKeyIsBroke, but I eventually will. Maybe. Okay, bye.